"Hey, beautiful," the man whistled, teasing Alice. Instead of feeling offended, she just smiled and winked at the man. The man was pleased by that. He came closer and started to flirt with Alice.
"Not here,"
she whispered in his ear, then walked to the encounter. The man was a little bit drunk. He licked his tongue with pleasure and followed Alice. "No, please!" The man was tied to the chair, crying and begging. His face was bruised and his clothes were wrinkled. Alice put on the boxing gloves, standing in front of the man.
That was too much.
"He asked for it."
She smirked and moved toward the man. Most people thought that if you're a Hooter girl, there's a long list of things you should be concerned about. Impolite guests during working hours, bullying, harassment, and even murdering. But for Alice and her co-workers here, it was totally different. Here, the Hooters girls were justices. Their victims were perverts who often stalked Hooters girls. After cleaning and fixing the clothes, Alice put a familiar smile on her pretty face and went out to serve the new customers. Suddenly, from the front door came a well-dressed tall man, pretty good-looking. However, his eyes when he saw the Hooters girls told Alice that he was a pervert.
"What a pity."
She thought about when the handsome face would turn into a mess.
"Welcome to Hooters, darling. What would you like to eat, Mr.?"
"Joydo. Oh, sorry. It's my first time here. Can I get some chicken wings with Budweiser beer?" Alice giggled. After noting down the order, she quickly came back to the encounter. "Hey, why don't you come and serve me?" one customer whistled.
"How about having some fun tonight?"
The other smirked. Alice had identified the target. She was about to do her plan. However, Joydo suddenly stood up and pointed at the perverts. "Hey, shut your mouths or I will do it for you!" Joydo's words worked. The two customers shut their mouths and turned back to their table.
"Thank you,"
Alice said and walked away.
So, keeper or creeper?
Melissa asked. Alice shrugged, then looked at Joydo. Melissa looked at her for a moment, then said sternly,
Be careful, Alice, or else.
But Alice was busy staring at the phone number she had just saved on her phone. 2 weeks later, Joydo still often came to Hooters to meet Alice. He even asked her out after work. Alice happily said yes.
I'll be watching,
Melissa said as Alice was about to leave the place. Joydo gently opened the car door for Alice.
"So where are we going?"
Alice asked. "An interesting place," Joydo said. Gradually, Alice sensed something wrong. The road was getting solitary.
"Are we getting there yet?"
she asked while looking around. "Almost there," he replied. Alice wasn't a dum-dum. She quickly realized Joydo's plan. However, in the current situation, she couldn't resist him immediately, but had to wait for a chance. The car finally stopped. Just as Alice expected, Joydo locked the door.
"What are you doing?"
Alice drew back, but there was no more room for her. Joydo revealed his true evil face. He rushed to Alice. Joydo finally regained consciousness. There was only darkness embracing him. He was tied to the chair with his mouth covered by tape. Surrounding him was a wet and dark room with cold rock walls. There was only one bulb in the middle of the room, and when he could see things better, he totally freaked out. Tied in front of him were the two customers who teased Alice previously, and they all freaked out.
"Don't you relate? Becoming a prey in your own hunting game."
Alice smirked. Joydo wasn't expecting his meticulous plan was detected by Alice. He despised and hated the Hooters girls. He had made a perfect plan to trap Alice, but he didn't know that she knew it all. "Alice, this is a mistake." His voice was shaking. Alice smirked. There was no way she would believe his words. She put on her boxing gloves and slowly moved towards him. Joydo screamed in pain after a punch to his face. Alice's punch was so hard it left his lips bleeding. That didn't stop Alice from keeping doing her job. Until she stopped, Joydo's face was swollen. He could even hardly open his eyes. "Please!" But replying to his begging was Alice's savage laughter. Melissa, who had witnessed everything, gave Alice a hammer.
I love the faces that you make.
Alice whispered to Joydo's ear, at the same time raising the hammer.
Hi, I'm your Hooters girl tonight.
Alice, with a smiley face, walked to the customer who had a floppy beard. The customer put his arm around her shoulders without hesitation.
Hi, darling.
For the coffee junkies, it's all about my cousin Wild, who announced that he loved coffee more than anything else in this world, especially Starbucks. He said that 2 cups of coffee a day is a must, or else he can't stand the entire day. I thought that it would be fine at first, until one day, Wild became out of control. That day, I went to Starbucks for an espresso before going to work. There was a long line of people already, so I had no choice but to wait. Well, it looked like everyone was tired on Monday morning. I could tell that based on their grumpy faces. When it was my turn, I asked for an espresso, but before I pulled out my wallet, someone crashed into me so hard I almost fell. It was Wild, my cousin. After not seeing him for a long time, I didn't expect such an awkward encounter.
Hey! Where's my coffee?
Wild raised his voice. "Sir, please wait a moment." A Starbucks employee named Bruce replied gently.
Bring it to me! Right now!
I was quite surprised to see him acting like that. Wild used to be so gentle and a kind man. This was the first time I had seen him so angry. At this point, Wild totally lost his patience, slamming the table, then grabbing the employee's collar. Bruce looked so confused as Wild insisted that his order was ignored. Shelby, the store manager who was notified of the incident, rushed to the counter.
Sir, may I know your concerns?
Wild pointed at Bruce's face and said to the manager,
This stupid dude forgot my order!
Bruce shook his head and looked at Shelby. Shelby gently asked Wild,
Sir, what did you order?
Go and ask your silly staff!
Wild yelled. Bruce pulled Shelby to a corner. "This man has finished the 7th cup. That's too much."
Give me the coffee!
Wild still screamed.
Sir, please calm down. It seems to be a misunderstanding here. Could I invite you into my office?
Shelby politely walked over to the guest.
No, just bring my drink here! Right now!
Everything got worse when Wild refused to leave and the customers in line started to get impatient.
Hey, Wild, stop it!
I murmured, but he didn't seem to recognize me at all, which was so weird. At that time, another guy in Starbucks uniform walked out with my order. I was about to get the drink, but Wild was faster. He grabbed the hot cup and shoved it in Bruce's face. Bruce screamed in pain, clutching his face, which was now burned by the heat of the coffee. Oh my God! The espresso I ordered was extremely hot. Everyone was shocked. After doing that horrible thing, Wild stood panting with an empty cup in his hand. The manager immediately called 911 while others helped Bruce with first aid. Wild was still angry and kept glaring at Bruce with hatred.
That stupid rat forgot my order!
Wilde returned to his seat after I dissuaded him, but his displeasure was still evident on his face. Bruce's burns were severe. Shelby allowed him to skip the shift to see the doctor. In the end, Shelby had to offer to compensate Wilde. Even so, he still grudgingly took the cup and went back to his seat. The coffee cups were brought out to Wilde one by one. He drank each cup in a single gulp, but that wasn't enough.
Bring me more! More!
His eyes quickly turned bloodshot, and he growled at Shelby. No one dared to stop him because he was still holding the porcelain cup in his hand.
More! More! More!
He just laughed and yelled. He kept drinking until they brought him the 10th cup. It didn't matter if it was iced or hot coffee. He just chugged the whole cup right away. It seemed he had lost all taste and sensation.
I want more coffee! I want more coffee!
He laughed as he grabbed Shelby, shoving the entire cup of coffee into her mouth. Even though the cup choked her, he still tried to force Shelby to swallow it. She would be suffocated by his damn actions.
Coffee! Coffee!
Wilde had gone totally insane.
Wilde, stop it!
I was terrified, rushing to stop him, but he just pushed me away. At this moment, the police promptly appeared to intervene.
Coffee!
Even when he got caught, he didn't stop screaming. Wilde was taken to the hospital for neurological treatment soon after. The Starbucks store also banned him. Bruce quit his job because of the shock, and I haven't seen him ever since. 1 week later, Wilde's condition was improved, and after hearing what happened, Wilde didn't recognize himself anymore. As for me, after that incident, I switched to drinking tea instead of coffee, especially chai tea.
The police have recorded a total of 4 brutal murders in the past week. The common pattern in those cases is that the victim's head was cut off and brought away. Police are expanding their inquiry.
Mommy, can you stay home today?
Those words raised in Avery a sense of guilt for making her own daughter worry. She kissed the kid on the forehead.
Be good. Stay at home and take care of your sister. I'll come home early today, I promise.
Then the mother left home and began her workday. Avery was an Uber driver. That was a busy day, and she had to spend almost all day on the road. Very soon it was getting dark. There was a shortcut, a small path through the forest, which Avery always took to get home faster. When she just passed through the long tunnel, the Uber application informed her about a booking customer. But anyhow, she didn't accept this ride because she promised her little daughter to get home as soon as possible. It was past 11. Avery pressed the gas pedal. Lowering the window, she enjoyed the cool breeze on her face. When she just passed through the long tunnel, the Uber application informed her about a booking customer. In a moment of carelessness, Avery was startled when someone jumped out of nowhere in the middle of the road. She instinctively hit on the brake. The car lost control, and everything turned upside down.
Oh God, did I hit someone?
Avery was frightened. She tried to strain her eyes to see clearly, but there was no one on the street. Suddenly, she saw an arm from the outside reaching into the car and grabbing her shirt. The bloody hand was shaking so badly. Then a man showed up. It was the man who jumped out into the middle of the road.
Let me in.
Gosh, his whole body was covered in blood. His clothes were like rags. Perhaps this was because Avery hit him with the car. She quickly unlocked the car door to let the man in. In just a few more miles, Avery's car suddenly shook violently and she had to stop. The passenger also got down from the car to see the problem.
A nail? For God's sake. Doggone it.
Avery's tires, which had been pierced with some sharp spikes, were now flattened. The man standing nearby came up to her and said,
Well, if you don't mind, I have a toolbox with me. It's in the back seat.
Avery rejoiced slightly. She told the man to check the condition of the tires while she got into the back seat to get the toolbox.
Hope he has pliers.
She told herself while opening his bag. But the moment Avery opened it, she was shocked to look at what was inside. There was a bunch of nails whose shape was exactly the same as the ones embedded in her tires now. Next to it was a bloody axe and a saw blade.
What took you so long?
Startled, Avery quickly closed the bag. At the same time, the man got into the front seat and closed the door. She tried to act normal.
I think I should get out of the car and wait for the rescue squad to come.
Avery was surreptitiously dialing 911 and managed to open the car door. The man looked at her, smiling expectantly. That's when she realized the car door was locked. That creepy man, who had been watching Avery in the rear-view mirror, suddenly leaned backward and asked,
Did you really call the rescue team?
Avery was startled when she realized the man's face was very close, perhaps inches away from hers. There was something so monstrous in his smile. His wide eyes and jagged yellow teeth made her nauseous.
What do you want? Get out of my car now!
Avery tried to sound calm. The man gasped for breath and said,
But it's dangerous outside. Don't make me go there. I'm scared.
Then he laughed like crazy while raising his hand forward to strangle Avery. Just then, a dispatcher picked up the phone. Avery was feverish and accidentally touched the speakerphone button.
It's 911. What's your emergency?
The man was startled when he heard the voice on the phone. When he was caught off guard for a second, Avery pulled a hammer from the toolbox to defend herself. She used all her strength to smack him on the head, but the hit wasn't strong enough.
Well.
Avery swung the hammer wildly but was soon restrained. The murderer grabbed her hand and snatched the hammer, which made her fall backward. She fell on the toolbox, and all the things inside fell out. It turned out to be a human head, a horrifying scene Avery would probably never forget for the rest of her life. The blood that oozed from it soaked the bag, dirty and pungent. Suddenly, Avery remembered the breaking news earlier.
So, maybe you found my widow secret. But I don't want you to see it at all. So what should I do now? Tell me.
Please, I'll keep my mouth shut. I swear to God, please let me go.
Avery got even more petrified when she thought about her children. But that cold-blooded killer didn't heed her pleas. He laughed while approaching his prey. And then, hammer blows came crashing down. Her painful scream, overwhelmed by the sound of hammering, tore up the still air in the deep forest. Blood splattered everywhere, and the madman was extremely amused. He was overcome with pleasure watching his victim lying in blood. Avery fainted, tears streaming down her face as she thought of her daughter.
When I was a kid, I used to love playing games. especially Minecraft. I never knew that one day Minecraft would ruin my entire life. This story happened 10 years ago, when I was only 15. No, it must be him! It must be him! It must be him! My brother is the one who brought Minecraft to my life, and since we were extremely close, he left his PC at home after moving to college. That night, my parents went to visit my grandmother, so I stayed home alone and played Minecraft with my two best friends, Kai and Evan. Evan and Kai were inviting me to play survival mode. That's strange. I don't want to play this mode because joining unknown servers holds its own risk. But in the end, I joined them anyway. A few minutes later, Kai sent me the link. I clicked in immediately and was led to a large room with 10 other gamers. Oh, Kai and Evan are here. For some reason, I felt relieved when I saw my friends. The game began, and we spread out in different directions. I started building a shelter while Kai and Devin gathered stones for a furnace. Everyone was doing their gameplay except one player. This guy named his character First Creeper, and he didn't do anything. He just stood like a statue right next to me and just followed me around. When I moved, he moved. When I stopped, he stopped. Who the hell is this? I was feeling irritated, so I asked in the chat box. Guys, who is the First Creeper? That freak just follows me without doing anything. Must be some pathetic guy, I guess.
I don't give a shit. Just get back to the game.
I didn't know if that guy could read it, but when I went back to the game screen, First Creeper disappeared. We played Minecraft for hours. When the clock struck 12, it was already dark in Minecraft. Evan was nowhere to be seen, and Kai hid in the shelter while I drifted apart to collect wood. 5 minutes passed. I started to run in the direction of the shelter because I was scared of the zombies. I kept running, but strangely enough, I couldn't find the shelter. Am I lost? So I texted in the chat, Kai, Evan, you there? But no one answered, so I texted them again. Did you guys leave me alone? A new message popped up, but instead of Kai or Evan, that First Creeper guy replied, You're not alone. I shivered and checked at the game screen immediately, but still found myself standing alone. So I went back to the chat. Only then did I find out that everyone was either dead or out of the game, except for the three of us and this First Creeper guy. Kai? Evan? I know you guys are around. Answer me. Still, my friends didn't reply. Don't search for them. It's useless. I've already killed them all. I thought this was a joke because apparently Kai and Devin were still alive. Just right then, I noticed on the chat box to see Kai died, then Evan. See? And now, I just need to kill you, and the game will be over. At this point, I got so frustrated that I couldn't ignore this guy. Then where the hell are you, First Creeper? And he said, I'm after you. Believe it or not, his answer gave me goosebumps. My heart rate increased, so I turned back to check. The room was empty. There's no one but my cat lying on the bed licking her fur. I called Kai and Devin but got no answer. I didn't wait to listen to this crazy guy, so I quit the game. Phew, what a freak. I went to bed and called it a day. About an hour later, I was woken up by the buzzing phone. Hello? It was my brother. He almost shouted into the phone. Are you at home? I lazily replied, Yeah, where else can I go at this hour? For some unknown reason, he was silent for a moment. Then he said in a shaky voice, Then why did the alarm go off? There's no sound of the alarm going off. What are you saying? Then he paused as if to reassure me, saying, You need to hide. I just got notified. Someone broke into our house. I was in a complete state of panic. God, is that the First Creeper name from earlier? How could he find my address? Did he track my IP? Did he come here to kill me to win the game? At that moment, I could hear heavy footsteps rushing towards the door of my room. I sprung out of bed, In my room, there's nowhere to hide. I frantically dialed 911. I could hear someone pass through the toilet, my parents' room, and stop in front of my door. With no other choice, I grabbed my baseball bat and hid behind the door. Please don't come in. Please don't come in. Please don't come in. I stood there and prayed, but then the door burst open. I held my breath and stood as still as a statue. Whoever he was, he just stood there for a while. Apparently seeing no one, he slowly closed the door. But suddenly, my cat made a sound and pointed her head to where I was hiding. This is it. I can feel the door opening again. And he slowly poked his head inside. Just a little more. A little more. God, his head is so green. It's the first creeper guy in Minecraft. Ah! Like an animal, I grabbed the baseball bat and hit him on the head with all my might. I don't remember how many times I hit him, but I saw that guy fall down. Blood was flowing from his body, splattering everywhere. Huff, ha, huff, ha, ha, I'm the winner. It took me a while to calm down, but God, that guy didn't seem to be the first creeper. He looked more like a person wearing casual clothes, but wearing the mask of the character. I peeled off the mask off the first creeper. Lying in the middle of a pool of blood was an 18-year-old young man, glaring his dead eyes at me. Half his head was almost crushed. Brother?
To break into your house. That day, Olivia was home alone. She was lying on her bed and texting with Alex, just a random guy she met online recently. Mom called and told her to check the doors carefully before going to bed. Mom was right to be worried. In the past few days, there had been people disguised as creepy clowns wandering off the streets. But anyway, those cases were reported from South Carolina, while Olivia's house was in Illinois. Those idiot clowns would never come to this neighborhood.
Don't forget to double-check the window.
Mom, I got it. I'm 17. I'm not a child anymore.
Olivia was a little annoyed because her mother kept treating her like a child. After a few minutes, she hung up the phone. Just as Olivia was about to return to her room, there was a sudden knock on the front door.
Who could be here at this time? So annoying.
She mumbled while getting to the door, but when she looked through the peephole on the door, there was no one outside. It must be the bratty kid Tony next door with his new trick, she thought, and walked up the stairs. Then came the knock again, and this time it made Olivia really angry. She crept to the door, preparing to swing it open and scold the boy. But when she looked through the peephole again, Olivia jumped in fear. On the outside, there was a wide-open, bloodshot eye. It was so close to the peephole. There was no kid outside, but a man in a clown costume. He was staring at the peephole at the same time Olivia was. And not only did he stare in, but he was also grinning weirdly, waving his hand and banging on the door repeatedly. After a while, the breaking in failed, and he suddenly left the house. Thinking he had given up, Olivia breathed a sigh of relief. But just a few seconds later, she saw his shadow flickering through the window. He was heading towards the kitchen. He repeatedly turned the doorknob, but still could not get in. He didn't stop, but continued to walk towards the back door. Oh my God! Olivia couldn't remember whether she locked the back door or not. Frightened and trembling, Olivia ran upstairs looking for somewhere to hide. She didn't dare get near any door because the clown was out there and he might catch her. No room seemed safe enough, she thought. her hands shaking as she dialed the phone. But damn, it already ran out of battery power. Olivia burst into tears. She had never felt so scared and helpless. Now that the clown got into the house, she could clearly hear his footsteps from downstairs. The clown was holding a knife in his hand, walking around slowly in the living room. He had just whistled, echoing through the quiet house, scaring Olivia even more. Something had fallen to the ground. Olivia covered her mouth not to make a peep. She was afraid to death. The clown slowly walked along the hallway, opening every door he passed. And then he suddenly sped up toward the stairs, coming up with sick and twisted ideas. Deadly silence. Olivia could no longer hear anything but the sound of her heart pounding wildly. She was about to open the door, but the footsteps came again. Now he was right in front of Olivia's room and opened the door. The half-open wardrobe caught his attention. He gave a wry smile and crept over. He opened the wardrobe, but there was no one inside. Olivia was under the bed. She didn't dare to even breathe heavily, only focused on his feet moving around. The clown was so close, step by step. He walked towards the bed where the panicking girl was hiding. Her whole body was petrified, so much that she couldn't even move an inch. Until the police cordoned off the entire house and found Olivia shivering under the bed, still alive. The clown had run away, and the police never found him. Olivia's mom was the one to dial 911 right after she checked the security camera, and he was so excited to see the gloomy woods ahead.
If you get lost, just follow the road. It'll show you the way out,
the tour guide said when the car stopped at the foot of the mountain.
It's very beautiful and deadly.
He tried to get as much footage as he could before it got dark.
So there's no one here, just us.
Ben panned the camera around the woods. The 100-year-old soaring tree trunk surprised and attracted Ben. Well, it was not as scary as people said. He kept following the small path until he came across a tree with a piece of paper on it. It was a missing person poster, but it wasn't the only one. Dozens of these posters were pinned on every tree around. The number was no less than 10.
Oh my God, they're all missing.
Ben moved the camera closer to the posters. Skimming through the information, he realized that the victims all went missing on the 13th day of the month.
All these people came from different places, but they all disappeared on the 13th.
Ben turned impatient. Were these pieces of paper real, or were they just some practical jokes? If the information was true, something terrible must have happened. Then who was the one to post these papers? If they were fake, then who would make this terrifying prank? Could it be some kind of monstrous ritual?
Guys, what do you think? I think this might be some kind of ritual. Oh, shoot!
He almost cried when he noticed a figure sitting on the logs. Suddenly, the thing turned around to look at him. Its shining eyes startled him. Scared, Ben immediately took the camera and ran away. And apparently, the creature was chasing him. He kept running and running without looking back. Even when he slipped, he didn't quit running. When he reached the empty lot, he stopped, held his breath. Now he barely heard any sound of that thing.
Guys, I thought it was a bear or something.
Ben decided to spend the night on this vacant field. He set up a small tent and gathered dry wood to build a fire. The light calmed him down a bit. Tired as he was,
He didn't intend to take a nap in case that bear would come back and attack him. To combat the body slump, Ben took out his camera and looked at the photos. After a while, he fell asleep. When he woke up, it was almost morning. Ben packed up his things and got up to find his way back. However, the path led him back to the empty ground where he had camped last night. Strange. He looked around and kept walking, and he was back in the same place again.
Impossible!
Ben decided to carve a mark on every tree he passed. But whatever he did, it still led him to that same place.
Damn it!
Ben cursed angrily, then turned in another direction. He didn't remember the guide's instructions.
Follow the rope. It will take you out of the forest.
Exhausted, Ben wandered hopelessly through the woods.
Is anybody there? Help me, please!
But the echo was only his own scream. Ben tried to locate the direction without paying attention to the ground. Ah! He stepped on a bear trap. His left foot clamped like it was crushed under the sharp, serrated teeth. Ben painfully tried to get his foot out of the trap, but however hard he tried, more blood flowed out, and he could feel the pain devouring his brain.
Help! Help!
He could only scream out for help, but in the middle of the pine barrens, no one could hear his plea. Just as he was about to faint, he heard footsteps behind him. He was overjoyed, thinking he could be saved.
Oh, please! Help me!
He almost broke down, but the man didn't make a peep, just walked towards him, instead of helping Ben remove the trap. At this point, Ben noticed his brown fur coat, which was very similar to the fur on the monster he'd seen last night. But it was too late. The man raised the axe.
Why me?
When Ben was closing on his death, he realized that that day was the 13th.
No! No! No!
The disappearance of the male YouTuber vlogger Benjamin, or Ben, is receiving enormous attention. There are a lot of rumors surrounding the tragic incident.
The city that never sleeps is probably just too afraid to close its eyes. The House of Death, a famous brownstone off Fifth Avenue, is reportedly terrorized by a whopping 22 ghosts. Shockingly, it became the crime scene of the latest case. As reported, the victims were a man and a girl, believed to be dad and daughter.
Woohoo! Guys, we found our next destination. Here we go, New York City! Phew! Hello, everyone. It's Ben again. The flight to New York was delayed by 2 hours. Anyways, let me show you House of Death, one of the most famous haunted houses in America. Okay, see you guys inside.
Working as a TikTok streamer is not as fun as I expected. I've created content inspired by haunted places, which was supposed to be viral. However, a few months have passed and my channel still only has 1,000 followers. House of Death, please make me shine. I dragged my suitcase inside the house. My plan is to spend the night here.
Okay, guys, I'm in. As you can see, there's dust everywhere. I guess this place was abandoned for a while. I don't know why, but this place gives me chills.
Then, I headed to a room, which appeared to be a bedroom, to set up the lights for tonight's stream. Jesus, this house isn't as scary as it's described on the TV. In this case, I guess I have to use that trick.
Oh, I guess we've got enough people here. Make sure you turn the light off to get the show started. Right. The most recent case happened 10 years ago, but the news actually covered a part of it. I've asked around, and it turns out before the murder happened, a family used to live here. 3 people, in fact. Yes, the news never mentioned the mother, right? From what I heard from the neighbors, that night, they heard the sound of a man screaming. The father, yes, and then the little girl. Police searched everywhere, but the mother was never found, and the murder weapon was an ice pick. So sure enough, I think the mother murdered her husband and daughter, then killed herself somewhere.
The comment section started to get lively.
Why? Today we will find out why she did what she did.
Then, more and more commenting. I thought it was because they were excited, but I was wrong.
Guys, you know I'm not scared of this stuff, right?
Just then, a sudden sound in the doorway startled me. It's like something falling to the floor.
Who's that?
I turned around to see no one, so I left my chair and got to the doorway.
Guys, you won't believe what I just found.
I tremblingly showed them what I had just picked up in the hallway. The ice pick.
Okay, guys, it's time we cleared things up.
While everyone was commenting on the ice pick, I set up my tools on the table.
All you need is paper, 2 candles, a lighter, a needle, and a bit of blood from the person who's communicating with ghosts.
I poked my thumb with a needle and squeezed it to get the blood out. Then, I put 2 straight red dots on the A4 paper. Below each dot, I wrote yes, no in red. Next, place 2 candles on top of the 2 dots and light the fire.
I haven't tried this yet, so I don't know how effective it is. But now we'll start the summoning, shall we?
The number of viewers is increasing, as well as my heart rate is increasing.
Spirit? Spirit? Come here. Spirit? Spirit? Are you here?
The screen is flooded with comments. Is there someone behind? I turned around, but there was no sign of anyone.
You guys almost got me.
I don't pay attention to the comments anymore and continue to summon the ghost.
Spirit? 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 Are you here? Oh my god. Did you see that? The yes candle just flickered. This is really happening.
Okay, I have to stay calm and ask questions.
Spirit, you used to live here, right? Spirit, you're 20 years older, right?
So maybe I'm talking to the murdered daughter. I'll keep asking the question.
Spirit, were you murdered in this house? Guys, I've got goosebumps, but I still have to ask the important question. Spirit, you were murdered by your mother, right? So, yeah, I'm talking to that little girl. Now we're going to find out why the mother did it. But first, Spirit, besides you, is there anyone else in this house? And that is your mother? It's her! She's in this house!
Suddenly, the light flickered like crazy. Jesus, this damn house gave me a stroke of fear. But in return, the number of viewers is higher than ever.
What's wrong with everyone? Stop teasing me! There's no one behind! Okay, I'll go check. Wait for 10 seconds. Don't leave the screen. I got you! So this is a prank as a special gift to 1K followers. Thank you all for supporting me the whole time.
I turned to Jane, who was also laughing. Wow, she's such a shameless makeup witch. Even though I knew it was all fake, her makeup was so scary that I didn't dare look her straight in the eye.
Come on, Ben. You have to get used to this. Don't forget to pay me as you promised.
I couldn't focus on Jane's words. All I notice now is the empty table.
Jane, did you hide the ice pick? I've just left it right here.
Jane looked at me bewildered. Just then, her face turned painful. Blood splashed everywhere. Oh my God! Her eye was stabbed by an ice pick from behind. I have to get out of here right now.
Receiving calls from viewers of a TikTok streaming video, the police rushed to the crime scene, known as House of Death. All they found is a corpse of a girl. She was stabbed in the eye and died of blood loss. Currently, the TikToker Benjamin is still missing. The police will continue to investigate.
Spirit, is your mother still alive?
Passed away when I was a child. As a teen, I used to stay up way past midnight every night, watching terrifying videos on YouTube. My mom had always emphasized the importance of sleeping well to me and would definitely disapprove of my late-night routine. So I knew that if she caught me at that time, I'd be in big trouble. When I was 16 years old, my peaceful town was in turmoil as some children were suddenly disappearing. But you know, in the countryside, it's normal for kids like us to run away from home for a few days. Facing this news, my mum even grew more and more paranoid. Every night, I'd hear one of them wandering into my room, checking on me. And every night, she always checked on my brother, Daniel, first, and then came to my room. Even though she tried to walk softly, I could hear her footsteps. I'd immediately turn off my light and pretend to be asleep. I heard the door open, and my mother's tiptoe stepped into the room. I wondered if she knew I wasn't sleeping, because often it was only after what seemed like hours before they'd finally leave. The 16-year-old me felt my privacy was violated. However, I didn't dare cough a word because that only confirmed her suspicions. It was Saturday night. My mom got the news that my grandmother had been sent to the emergency room, so she had to leave home that night. Before heading off, she gave me a stern word reminding me to lock the doors and take good care of Daniel, who was so scared of ghosts at that time. She told me she'd be watching through the security cameras to make sure I'd follow that properly. To be honest, I was quite glad that I had the whole evening to watch horror movies. My mother had just left, so I called my friend to bring me the movie, Silence of the Lambs, to watch. A few minutes later, my friend arrived, holding the DVD in hand. I was extremely excited and hurriedly turned on the TV to watch. Meanwhile, my brother Daniel sat next to me coloring. Now it's 10 o'clock. I urged Daniel to go to bed. It took me half an hour to settle him down. I gently closed the door and went to the living room to finish the movie. I couldn't have my mom knowing that I was staying up late, so I did something naive and ignorant, something I'll always regret. I turned off the security cameras. For the next 2 hours, my eyes never strayed from the screen. It was late at night, and the movie gave me goosebumps. Sometimes I feel like someone is standing behind me, but I know it's all made up in my head. Around 12 o'clock, I suddenly heard the door creak from Daniel's room. Maybe my brother got up to drink water. For a while, still not leaving the screen, I called out, "Daniel, are you not asleep yet?" No one answered. Feeling strange, I went to Daniel's room to check. The door was still closing. "Daniel?" I whispered. He didn't reply, but I could see him under the cover. I went back to the living room to finish watching the movie. It was about to reach the climax of the movie when suddenly I felt a strong wind blowing from nowhere. I glanced quickly toward the corner of the room. The main door was unlocked. The strong wind blew it open. Oh my God! This is bad! This is so bad! Could it be? Having a bad feeling, I grabbed the baseball bat and crept up to Daniel's bedroom. Daniel, are you asleep? Usually this noise would have woken him up. I knew something was wrong. I turned the blanket over to check. What? Lying in the blanket was not Daniel, but a strange man I had never seen before. He was pale, and his eyes were bloodshot and had huge gaping fangs under them. While I was still motionless in fear, he grabbed my hand and squeezed it. Shocked and panicked, I smacked him on his disgusting face with my baseball bat. I hit him so hard that blood splattered my face, and eventually he had to let go of me. I rushed to my bedroom, locked the door, and called the police. I was so worried about Daniel. I hadn't seen him ever since. Had he been kidnapped? No, I don't want to think about it. My poor Daniel. A few minutes later, the police arrived, and my mother was home shortly after. The stranger was nowhere to be found. All they found were bloodstains on the bed, and Daniel, my dear brother, shivering in the closet. He must have been like me, pretending to be asleep and hiding in the closet as soon as he heard a strange noise at the door. And since I turned off the camera, the police never found him. A few months later, when things had calmed down, I joked with my mother. I see why you're so worried that you have to check my room every night. My mother looked at me with concern. What do you mean? I never checked your room after you slept. It's a dreary winter day. I stand in front of my treasure, the Harry Potter collection, while sipping a cup of coffee. This familiar scene reminds me of what happened 10 years ago, when I was just a 10-year-old kid, being a boy who loved to explore things. My best friend at the time was Ronan. Being a die-hard Harry Potter fan, I just called him Ron. And since we're so close, I considered myself Harry as well. Interesting, right? Ron and I loved going to the train station after school. Back then, I always believed that the barrier between platforms 9 and 10 holds the secret entrance to the magical platform 9 3/4, which of course could lead us to Hogwarts. There was a man who often sat at the corner of the railway platform, wearing a cape, like a witch's costume. One afternoon, I noticed a young boy approach the old man with a wand in his hand.
Hey Ron, do you think he's an employee of platform 9 3/4?
No idea. Ron's dusty answer disappointed me. I stopped talking to him, turned to see the empty corner. The old man and the boy with the wand were no longer there.
Oh no, I lost track of them.
I came to the railway platform, but still, I found nothing.
It's dinner time. We need to go home.
After that day, Ron and I were stuck in the house for a whole week due to the heavy snowfall. As soon as the weather improved, I picked up the phone and called his house.
Hey, come over. We're gonna go to the station. Don't forget your wand.
By the time we got there, it was already dark. Only a few people were passing by. We stood in a familiar place, tried to find the employee of platform 9 3/4, but that day, he didn't sit in his familiar corner. Ron stared at me in the confusion, so I had to reassure him.
If you want to be a witch, you have to trust me. The other day, I saw that man took a boy to Hogwarts. That boy has a wand, just like us.
Then, Ron and I approached the place where the man usually sat, but it just made us more disappointed. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew up from nowhere. It brought goosebumps to the back of my neck.
Bruh, is that Azkaban Dementor or something. I don't know, but let's go home. It's getting dark.
I ignored Ron's words and tried to linger. A few minutes passed. From the darkness suddenly appeared a shadow, a thin and tall body. Oh my god, it's definitely Azkaban Dementor. In the distance, he was dark and threatening. A few seconds later, the shadow approached us and began to show its face. Underneath the cape, I saw ragged clothes. His face was terrifying and gave me nightmares for years. And in his hand was not a magic wand, a bloody knife. He smiled sinisterly, revealing jagged yellow teeth.
Run!
Ron yelled.
No! I spent my whole life preparing for this.
And then loudly chant the incantation.
Expecto Patronum.
Yet nothing happened. The man almost caught me. While my legs were wobbly with fear, Ron grabbed my hand and we ran as fast as we could.
Idiot. You want to die? Run!
Just then, I tripped and got my feet stuck in the railway tracks. The madman was still standing over there and laughing. Oh my god, that's it. Am I going to die like this? My fear spiked. I frantically waved my wand to hope for a miracle. The train was already very close that could hit me in any seconds. When I'm about to pass down, Ron ran down and managed to free my leg. He made it out before the train cut through and left the madman, who was still laughing, wildly behind. That night, when Ron took me home, my dad got really mad. He thought I sneaked to the train station without asking his permission. Turns out his concerns are well grounded. During that week, the news had spread about the disappearance of boys my age. In the most recent case, the boy's mother said that after she lost her son while refueling at a gas station near the railway, and the common thing between the boy and the other victims is that they are all Harry Potter fans.
Aggressive and entitled, she pushed the staff away and went straight to the counter.
Hey, what happened to your ears? Mashed potato and fried chicken!
That woman said. Ma'am, you're not wearing a mask. We can't give you food, said my colleague Ryan.
What are you saying? I said I'm hungry and I need food immediately!
She ignored all the things we were trying to say. Suddenly, she climbed onto the counter and yelled at Ryan.
Make me something to eat! Do it!
She threw things around and just stood there screaming at Ryan. That was when I stepped in. Ma'am, please calm down. She turned to me.
I will stab you. Bring the mashed potatoes and chicken over here!
She screamed, then scratched her own face. God, I thought she'd gone crazy. We can't do that because you're not wearing a mask, I tried to explain calmly.
I'll stab you now! Bring the food here!
The woman waved her arms and cursed with a defiant attitude and her terribly scratched face. She ignored all my words and yelled loudly.
Get me that goddamn food!
That woman was so angry that she kicked the menu on the table. You must wear your mask. The angry woman cursed at me with vulgar words and then jumped off the counter.
This restaurant is disgusting! You're disgusting!
Then she stormed out. After the crazy woman left, we all sighed in relief. Though I hadn't gotten myself together yet. This was the first time I'd seen such a Karen in real life. We didn't want that kind of customer ever again. So I just quietly cleaned up everything and went back to work as usual. When my shift ended, I packed up my things and went home. On the road, sometimes I could feel the footsteps behind me, as if someone were following me. But every time I turned around, there was just me and the empty street. So weird. I mumbled and walked faster. I knew someone was following me. Suddenly, I turned around. Sure enough, someone hid as soon as they saw me. I swallowed hard, clenched my fists, determined to find out who they were. So I walked very slowly towards the alley. Karen jumped out of the alley and ran toward me. Fortunately, I caught her hand before she could stab me. Oh my God, she was so strong.
I told you I was hungry. Don't you understand?
The woman growled. She was crazy. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her mouth was drooling as if she wanted to eat me alive. She pushed down the knife. Luckily, I dodged to the side just in time. I pushed her away, but she wouldn't stop. That crazy woman took the javelin towards me and took one bite. I struggled to push her away.
That tastes good.
This woman was a psycho.
Please, calm down.
I held back the pain, trying to convince her.
Go to hell!
But she didn't listen. She clutched the knife and pounced on me.
You!
She shivered, laying on the ground, blood flowing from her stomach.
It was your fault!
I was so scared, and my mind was a mess at that time. I didn't know what to do.
Help me!
She moaned. I was so scared that I left the woman and ran all the way home. All that night I couldn't sleep well. I wished all these things were just a dream. The next morning, the police arrived at my door. Only then did I know that that woman last night was discovered and taken to the emergency room in time, so she was not in danger. And even though she stabbed herself in the stomach, I couldn't help but blame myself. God, if only I had served her food at that time.
Being a student in a big city is so difficult. After all, I decided to move to a remote rural area. To earn money, I applied for a job at Wendy's. The interview was smooth. The job didn't require much since there weren't many people in the area. While taking me around the restaurant, Mr. Royce, the manager, suddenly said, one more thing. Do not ever come near the kitchen. I acknowledged that at the fast food restaurant, the kitchen was where they keep the secret recipe, so I totally agreed. Beside Mr. Royce, there was an employee named Lynn and a chef that I barely knew his name. Lynn wore the uniform, makeup, and a wig that looked just like Wendy. We didn't talk much. Lynn was odd. She often looked around and didn't make any sound. Moreover, the next day, after bringing food for the customer, she threw up right there on her feet. And she was slapped right at the spot by the manager. The next afternoon, I went to work late. When I came in, Lynn was leaning out, peeping at the room inside. Isn't that the kitchen? I thought. Lynn, what are you doing? She was startled as she heard my voice. Stained cups and bowls on her hands were dropped, making a loud sound. Jesus, are you okay? I felt so bad that I ran to her to help. But strangely, Lynn was so frightened that she couldn't control her body. She was shaking like she had a seizure. Then I pointed somewhere. I turned around and saw Mr. Royce. Hi, boss. Lynn doesn't seem so well, so I'm gonna help her clean up right now. Yet the manager got mad. He held her hair and shouted, "This fat rat! How dare you!" Lynn was shaking even worse. Her body was shivering, foaming at her mouth.
No, no, no!
As a witness, I didn't know what to do. At that moment, Royce turned to me and said, "You are late today, so your salary will be deducted." After that, I was sent home. The day after, I went to work but didn't see Lynn. Instead, Mr. Royce was working. And days after that, Lynn was nowhere to be seen. So I thought she was fired. It was a Saturday night. I finished my shift at 11 p.m. There was no one in Wendy's store. I guessed Royce and the chef were in the kitchen. When I was about to lock the door, I couldn't find my key. Jesus, Royce is not gonna go easy on me. There was no choice for me. I had to come into the kitchen for the spare key. Mr. Royce? How strange. The kitchen was empty. There was only a boiling bone broth on the stove. I came in and found a half-opened door at the corner. Curiosity got the better of me, so I stepped in. Jesus, in front of me there was a stair to the basement. I had no idea that Wendy's had such a basement, I uttered. Then I followed the dark stairs and tried to step as gently as I could. When there were a few steps left, I started hearing people talking. "Boss, the meat is so fat lately." It was the voice of the chef. Then Royce said, "Resources are rare these days, so stop complaining." It turned out to be a slaughter place. Right at that moment, the sound of a knife cutting hard on the table resounded, causing the floor to shake. The pig must be very big, which cost the chef so much strength, I thought. Then I felt something roll to my feet. Squinting to see clearly, I picked it up and found it was an eyeball with blood on it. That's horrible. I suddenly stepped back and accidentally made a sound. "Who's that?" It was Royce's voice. "I'll check it." Then the chef's. I was freaked out. I tried to find a place to hide. As I turned around, I luckily found cold storage of meat. I quickly came in. In the dark, I felt relief because these messes might be a good place to hide. So I ducked into a corner when I heard the chef's footsteps getting closer and closer. I held my breath and waited. The place where I hid was extremely cramped. There was meat hanging above and below. Boo! I was startled and sat down on the floor. My hand touched the meat and it felt so sticky. That was when I realized that the things around me weren't meat, but looked like human bodies. Gosh, I was not a stranger, but Lynn. Oh no, it was her upper part. The lower part was cut down as the blood dried, and she was all cold. I tried not to scream. I just sat there, next to Lynn's dead body, until I could no longer hear the chef's steps. Because it was too cold, I crawled out. When I thought I would reach the door, suddenly I was blocked by a huge body. Gotcha! Right at that moment, all the lights turned on. The chef with the knife in his hand, standing right in front of me. I could see around by the light in the room. There was not only pork, but there were also human corpses hanging around. The chef slowly raised his knife and prepared to slash it. As everything got blurred, I fainted away. I didn't know how long, but when I woke up, I felt like I was flying. My feet didn't touch the ground, and my whole body ached. At that moment, Mr. Royce and the chef appeared. That's when I realized I was being hung up, but I couldn't scream anymore because I lost all feeling from the cold.
Hi everyone, it's Faith again. Today I want to show you guys this abandoned McDonald's restaurant. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's go!
This McDonald's was located in a small suburb, and it took Faith over an hour to find the way there. But it was worth all her efforts. She felt excited to be the first YouTuber to explore this place and was sure this video would break the record of her channel.
I heard that there was a massacre here, and the victims were McDonald's employees. The killer was never arrested.
Faith emphasized while filming the inside of the restaurant. There were neatly arranged tables and chairs on which many dust layers had thickened over time.
Look!
The old menu and some posters were still there on the board and also covered with dust and mold. Faith went to see the ice cream machines, the soda maker, and fryers. Suddenly, she saw a patch of mold on the floor behind the counter.
The police once found a body here. This place is a mess!
Faith panned the camera around to the kitchen.
I think we should move on.
Faith said to the camera and stepped over the mess on the floor toward the bathroom. As she was walking along the hallway, the flashlight went out. Yikes, she didn't change the battery. Faith stopped to shake the flashlight, hoping to brighten it up a little longer.
Oh, shoot!
Faith was startled, almost dropping the flash. Behind the window was a smiling Ronald Clown statue, whose eyes were wide open and very spooky. The statue looked old and odd.
Look, guys, this clown looks so real.
Realizing nothing so dangerous about this thing, she moved on to the other corners. The next destination was the toilet area, which was told to be where the murderer hid the corpses. Right after she walked to the door, the unpleasant musty smell wafted out. She gulped, hesitating whether to go in. Even though people said it was a rumor, it still frightened Faith.
I'm feeling pretty nervous, guys. Just a rumor anyway.
Faith turned the doorknob. Nothing special here.
Oh, just a regular bathroom.
Faith sighed, yet still wanted to check it. She went around with the camera on. It looked cleaner than the other rooms, and there was no mold, no blood, or sign of murder here.
Guys, the rumor is fake.
Faith left the toilet. This time, Faith focused on the floor she was standing on. There were a lot of stains, some messy piles of things, some dusty paintings and doodles.
God! These are really...
Faith was panic-stricken, then she fell to the ground, dropping the camera. On the ceiling was a dead body hanging. The corpse was wearing a McDonald's uniform. Her hand dangled in the air. Her face with 2 black eye sockets was covered in messy hair. Suddenly, her mouth started to move. Faith was so scared that her whole body froze. The brown liquid trickled down, emitting a foul stench throughout the air. Faith was panic-stricken, then she fell to the ground, dropping the camera. Rumors were true, and this place was really haunted. At this point, she didn't care about the video anymore. She quickly grabbed the camera and ran away from the abandoned restaurant without looking back. Fortunately, during her run, Faith found a police station. She quickly rushed in. When the police arrived, they quickly searched the entire restaurant but did not find the body. But the police continued to investigate based on Faith's video and traces at the scene. Faith offered the police some footage from her camera for investigation. As she watched the tape to the end, Faith shivered when she discovered the most terrible thing. There was no statue of Ronald the Clown in this abandoned McDonald's at all. Subway food store for more than 15 minutes. Gosh, this store had never been this crowded. It had been like that ever since those 2 new girls came. Whatever. I just wanted to order my favorite bread. But they worked so slow that the waiting line got very long. One of the girls saw me and sighed and looked away. I remembered her. Her name was Ashley. A few days ago, I came to Subway to buy food, and even though I had told her exactly 15 times that I didn't want ketchup, she didn't listen to me at all. I lost my temper and then had a quarrel with Ashley. Finally, the manager came to apologize to me, while Ashley got a day's salary deducted. But what still annoyed me was her attitude. What an obnoxious hussy. She muttered something to the employee next to her. They definitely were talking about me.
Hey, what took so long?
Ashley stopped whispering. She sneered and then got back to her work, and she threw a glance at me. Finally, it was my turn to order. Ashley went inside right when I came to her.
What would you like to order, sir?
The other girl, named Julia, looked a bit shy. 1 chicken and bacon ketchup melt, no ketchup, please. Bear in mind, no ketchup. No ketchup. Got it? I repeated many times just to make sure. I decided to follow Julia without her noticing when she brought my order in there.
Hey, no ketchup.
Julia said to Ashley.
He'll never know.
Ashley sneered while pouring ketchup over my bread. I told her not to. Damn it. As if that wasn't enough, she spat a puddle of saliva onto the bread.
He deserves it. And don't you tell the manager.
Ashley threatened Julia. At that moment, I just wanted to rush over and rip that Ashley to pieces. Then the 2 girls walked out.
Please, come and take your meals.
I'm not taking this.
Sir, I didn't put the sauce in, as you asked.
Really? I saw her spit on my food.
I pointed out to Ashley. Her eyes kept rolling because of that.
Sir, what are you talking about? We never did.
I saw you do it with my own eyes. You did it.
Ashley asked me to show evidence, but who needed proof? I had seen it with my naked eyes.
You were there. Tell everyone.
I pointed at Julia, but she was so scared that she stammered and ended up defending her colleague.
No, we never did.
Fine. Then what is this? I said no ketchup dressing!
There was no way that witch could get out of this. So she kept quiet, and Julia apologized and offered to make another bread. Meanwhile, the culprit Ashley immediately stormed inside.
Remember, no ketchup!
I was good with Julia. She was a better waitress. However, she immediately proved the opposite because she put ketchup onto my bread again. Ever since I stepped into this goddamned place, these 2 dumbasses had been making fun of me. I couldn't stand them anymore.
I told you no ketchup!
Sir, I'm sorry. Please calm down. This is a mistake.
Mistake my ass!
I stormed in and grabbed the fork in the jar and rushed to her. Julia covered her face, screaming in pain. Damn it! Damn it! I frantically stabbed her even though she was crying in deadly pain. Right. I had to kill her. I had to kill her. She must die.
Go to hell!
Julia!
That witch. It was all her fault. That devil Ashley finally came out. I furiously rushed to her with my fork.
Time to die! Time to die!
I didn't remember how many times I stabbed her, but when I stopped, she was lying there in a pool of blood. and then a group of people quickly rushed over to suppress me. Ashley was dead right after that. Julia went to the hospital and I was brought here. It was all Ashley's fault. It was because of her that no one believed me, and I was brought here. I told her not to put the ketchup in, but she didn't listen at all.
No ketchup. No ketchup. No ketchup. No ketchup.
It's all my fault. I shouldn't have let you make that stupid video. Ryan, please forgive me. No, are you crazy?
Maddie knew Ryan always came up with bizarre ideas, but she never thought it would go this far.
Come on, Maddie. Let's make that video together. Mr. Beast did it too, and look how many views he got. 150 million!
While saying that, Ryan pointed at the screen. Maddie didn't know what to say because she was pretty convinced. Ryan and Maddie are best friends. After finishing high school, they dropped out of college to do YouTube together. Ryan, who has a good look, is the one who would love to be on the screen. However, Maddie is the content creator and also his manager. Maddie sighed, feeling she was about to lose this argument.
Suppose I say yes. Then where do we shoot?
Ryan got so happy hearing that.
I know the place. My buddy, please say yes.
And his look made her fall completely.
Okay, then let's make a plan.
Ryan was overjoyed. He said cheerfully,
"As long as there are no spiders, I'll be fine."
Then, Ryan left, leaving Maddie with a bunch of paperworks. Looks like Ryan is going out on a date with a girl he just met on Tinder a few weeks ago, Maddie thought. And finally, that day has come. Ryan is the boldest man, Maddie has to admit. Since Ryan wanted to make it as creepy as possible, he decided to take on the challenge at an abandoned cemetery. Although Maddie doesn't believe in ghosts and spirits, this place really gives her shivers. Just like what Mr. Beast did, Maddie and Ryan rented a large glass coffin. Then they hired a crane driver to slowly place it underground. The AC connected directly to the coffin will help Ryan breathe.
Okay, get in.
Maddie told Ryan while having a quick look around to make sure he has enough snacks, water, and bottles to clean. Ryan ducked inside. God, only he has the guts to do this. If it was Maddie, just being in such a narrow space would literally drive her crazy.
Hello guys, 24-hour buried alive challenge. Start!
Then, Ryan excitedly said to Maddie, who was standing dumbfounded at the top,
"Buried me alive, Maddie!"
Then Maddie started turning on the camera. The thick layer of soil was slowly brought down, soon covering the surface of the coffin. When everything was done, it was already dark.
Can you hear me, Ryan?
Maddie spoke into the radio, checking the signal underground. But Maddie didn't hear anything from Ryan. Then she began to worry.
Ryan, answer me!
Just then, he hastily replied,
Here, I've just peed a bit. What a mess down here."
Maddie told him to keep an eye on the camera.
Don't worry. See you soon.
As it started to rain, Maddie got into the car and lay down to rest. Fatigue quickly hit her, and she slowly fell asleep.
Hello guys, it's been 2 hours and I want to show you this. Can you see that? God, there's so many disturbing animals down here. Since I saw it, you guys will have to see it too.
Looks like I just saw something.
When Maddie woke up, it was already dawn. She turned on the walkie-talkie to talk to Ryan so he wouldn't be sad.
Ryan, in case you didn't know, it's already morning.
Maybe he's still sleeping, she thought.
Jesus, you take the challenge to sleep all the time?
Then, Maddie threw the radio away and started her morning. About an hour later, Maddie finished eating an apple and a few sandwiches. At this time, the sun was also shining overhead.
Maybe Ryan's awake by now.
She checked Ryan through the radio again.
Ryan, shouldn't you wake up now?
No one answered.
Ryan, stop your stupid prank.
Still no response. God, could it be? Maddie rushed to the AC area where Ryan's oxygen was provided. The machine is still operating normally. She was relieved, but still worried.
Ryan, if you don't answer, I will dig you up immediately and the challenge will end.
1 minute. 2 minutes passed. Still nothing happened. It's like Maddie's sitting on fire, and she called the crane and asked to dig the coffin up. It had been raining, so plowing the ground was much more difficult. It took half an hour for the lid of the coffin to gradually reveal itself. God, Ryan was curled up in a coffin. His whole body stiffened. His eyes rolled back and his mouth twitched. Ryan is in a state of extreme fear, and if Maddie's not mistaken, he may not be alive anymore.
Ryan! No!
After that, Maddie fainted and didn't know what else to do. According to what she heard, the crane man called the police. According to the investigation, maybe in the middle of the night, Ryan had a panic attack, combined with the narrow space which led to this tragic death. Before panicking, police found another video. For you. You're so sorry for your sufferings. In the video is Ryan with an eager look on his face saying, Maddie, because I don't have the courage to speak to you directly, I will say it now. Now you see it, you must be editing videos. Maddie, I love you. I know I keep you busy by disappearing a lot these days. But actually I prepared a vacation for you and me. If you don't mind, please be my girlfriend. So? Maddie's heart clenched. If only she knew Ryan's feelings in advance. If only he had told her frankly before taking on this stupid challenge. If only she hadn't let the spider in because she was so frustrated. Things would have been different.
The manager gave Rosie a slap on her ear. You rat! I rushed into the room to intervene. I wanted to smack that guy, but something held me back. A pickpacker at Target was the only job I had, so I didn't want to mess it up just because of a conflict with this damn guy. So I took Rosie out of there and comforted her. But she just didn't say a word, and I could see the blood draining from her face. The crusty manager went out again. So I took this chance to gossip with Claire at the receptionist's table. We were chit-chatting about the manager. Not because we were mean, just he was really obnoxious and he deserved it. It was said that Rosie took the elevator, which really made the manager angry. The story of Rosie and the forbidden elevator kept floating in my head. After all, what did she do with the elevator? And how was that related to the manager's overreaction? I meant, was something terrible in that elevator?
I want to try it,
I suggested.
But if you get caught, you will get fired.
Claire resisted.
He's not here anyway. If he comes back, just give me a warning call, okay?
I said, then stepped toward the elevator. It was just a normal elevator. There was nothing strange at all. I was too busy focusing on every corner until the elevator door opened. All I saw was totally silent and dark space. I turned on the flash to see the way. The light switch didn't work. I swung the flashlight around the room, which looked like some basements I used to work in. But the floor was pretty dirty. and the target crates were strewn all over. The floor smelled like a dead rat. It was disgusting here. I'd better leave this place. I quickly entered the elevator, but before pressing the button, I heard a strange noise. I frantically looked around, but other than the empty cardboard boxes, I couldn't see anything suspicious.
Maybe it was just my imagination.
I mumbled and sighed. That was the sobbing sound again, along with the sound of something falling to the ground. I really didn't mishear. My heart was about to explode out of my chest. What the hell was that? Was it a ghost? Was it what Rosie saw? I took a gulp and decided to discover the truth. So I followed the cry. It was very dark in the basement, so I had to walk carefully. The crying was on and off, but smaller than before. I patiently listened. I felt like I'd come very close. Claire's incoming phone call startled me, but I declined it because I couldn't pick up the phone right now. When the flashlight headed forward, I couldn't help but get terrified. A corpse in a target uniform was lying on the floor. That corpse with a chain on the neck began to decompose, which explained the horrible smell that made me nauseous. Suddenly, a flash of thought made my heart skip a beat, my legs shaking even more. If the corpse was here, then whose cry was it? I was just raising the flash up when I was met with another horrifying scene. This was a girl. Her eyes were sewn up while her mouth was open with dried up blood around. She could only groan instead of speaking.
Oh my God! Rosie, is that you?
I was even more horrified when I recognized Rosie by her hair color and clothes. At this moment, there were sounds of footsteps coming. I had to find a place to hide. The flashlight flickered, getting closer and closer to Rosie, and then I saw a familiar face. That was the manager. When he stood right in front of Rosie, he grabbed her by the hair and slapped her face several times. I witnessed everything, yet could do nothing. My phone rang again, and I hurriedly turned it off. "Who's that?" The manager was startled. I heard him walking towards me. The closer he got, the faster my heart thumped. Without any time to think, I ran away. He immediately chased after me. Suddenly, I tripped over the box and fell. No, my time was running out. The elevator was just 5 steps from me. I used the very last of my strength to push myself into it. But the manager was right behind me and was about to step into the cabin. I shakingly pressed the close button, and before the elevator door really closed, I could still see his disgusting, evil face. I ran to Claire, and she became more and more worried when she saw my terrified face.
We have to get out of here. I'll explain later.
We called the police to arrest the manager. Rosie was rescued while she was in a very bad condition. Her tongue was cut off, so she couldn't speak anymore. The store was forced to close right after the scandal. Now, every time I pass the sealed Target shop, all the horrible memories in my mind come rushing back, which never stopped making me shiver. Omegle, but I can't skip anyone challenge? Sounds hot. A YouTube recommendation made me so curious about this new trend on Omegle. After a few seconds of hesitating, okay, maybe I should give it a try. The rule of the game was very simple. In any random chance, I can't be the one who presses the skip button. Okay, let's get started. I clicked video. The conversations were boring, but I couldn't skip them. Hell yeah. No matter how weird the stranger was, I couldn't skip. If you don't want to talk, you can skip me, I told him after we connected for 1 minute. Faster than I expected. That guy raised his middle finger, then quit right away. What the hell? I frowned at his rude attitude. The next one, well, she was really a pretty girl.
Hi.
She started first.
Hi,
I replied with a gentle smile. We just talked about some trends on social media recently. Good news. We seemed to get along quite well. The conversation was fun, and there was no sign of wanting to skip each other.
Hey, do you want to play a game?
I suggested playing Truth or Dare, and she said yes. On her first turn, she hit the truth. I was excitedly waiting for a secret to be revealed.
Okay. A fact about me. I killed someone.
What? I was surprised.
Yes, I killed a person.
She confirmed. And even though I told her to stop, she kept recounting every detail of the murder. I couldn't skip first, and Omegle didn't have a mute mode, so all I could do was listen politely. She said that she met the victim on the street. Then she followed her home and strangled her to death. But it didn't end there. She also chopped up the body, removed the organs, and threw them away.
It'll take the police weeks or even months to find the body.
She laughed like a psycho. My God, I'd never seen such a freaky girl. Her face turned cold when she talked about those bloody crimes.
Hey, it's just a joke, isn't it?
I had to chill down my spine but still tried to keep my voice calm. The Omegle challenge wasn't over yet, and I didn't want to fail like this.
Joke? Do I look like joking?
That was enough. I couldn't stand this creep. I clicked on the skip button.
Well, looks like I've just lost this challenge,
I said to the camera and then stopped recording. After that, I did some editing to the recording, then posted on my YouTube channel with the title, Omegle, but I can't skip anyone. The video included the weird conversation with that insane girl. After uploading, I went to bed and surfed TikTok for a while before falling asleep. A phone call woke me up at night. It was my friend Roger, and he sounded very serious.
Check your YouTube channel right now.
I quickly opened my phone to see what happened. OMG! I was surprised to see that my Omegle video had reached 500,000 views in just a few hours of posting. It's unbelievable, I told Roger.
Dude, read the comments,
Roger replied. I was completely shocked when I scrolled down to the comments section below. The girl in the last video is dead. Many comments told me that the girl I talked to on Omegle was dead. Police discovered that she was dismembered and her body parts were thrown everywhere, exactly like what she described to me in the video before. One comment criticized me that I had no shame in making a joke about death. But that wasn't a joke. I did talk to that girl. She probably is a ghost, a comment popped up. I was so confused. I didn't realize what was really going on. Everything was getting worse. I locked the comments section.
I don't know, Roger. I swear, I talked to her for real.
I screamed on the phone.
So you actually talked to a ghost? I don't know. She was so real. It couldn't be fake.
I replied to Roger while scrolling through the article about her case. That girl was indeed dead, and her body was found 2 days ago. This was nonsense. Although I confirmed that I did not fake the video, they didn't believe me. After that, because there were so many conflicting opinions, I had to delete the video. A few days later, the police came to find me. I was extremely scared at the time, but I honestly reported and handed over the video of the conversation as evidence to the police. Finally, the mystery was solved. It turns out that the girl on Omegle was actually killed. But the murderer, after killing her,
used a software called Deepfake to pretend to be that girl and used it to spread around about his exploits. Fortunately,
my name is Roy, and this story happened to me many years ago. It was a December night. Mr. Hudson, my neighbor, had to go to work, so he hired me as the babysitter. Since I needed extra income, I agreed. When I got there, Mr. Hudson was about to leave. He also gave me a little rundown on what to do with Riley, his 5-year-old daughter. Riley turned out to be very sensitive. Lately, she had been having nightmares and was so scared that she even screamed in her sleep.
Well, I bought her a new Kissy Missy at first. Riley loved it so much. A few days passed and she changed. Every time she sees it, she screams.
Also, Mr. Hudson told me to stay in his room after tucking Riley so that she could feel at ease. Yes, sure, I can do that, I said, and waved goodbye to him. Around 10 o'clock, I took Riley up to the bedroom and was immediately blown away. When I heard about the Kissy Missy stuffed animal, I didn't think it was this big. As I was tucking Riley in, she seemed scared and still wouldn't close her eyes. Sam, I'm scared. Kissy Missy keeps staring at me, she said, like this thing can make its own decision. That's what I thought. But I still need to find a way to comfort her. It's all in your head, Riley. Kissy Missy is so cute. And besides, well, look how soft its fur is. She insisted on not letting me go. Okay, what about I'll take Kissy Missy to the other room and let your door open. Then whatever happens, you just scream and I'll be there. The move worked. Riley slowly closed her eyes. I made sure she's asleep, then leaving the door wide open and dragging Kissy Missy to the next room. Jesus, how much is this thing worth? It's way heavier than I thought. It took me a while to drag it to Mr. Hudson's room. I sighed in frustration and went to bed to watch some TV. For some reason, Kissy Missy gave me shivers. Was it looking at me like that before? No wonder Riley has been having nightmares. But then, I laughed to myself because of my rich imagination. I wake up in the middle of the night. The TV was still on. I turned to the corner of the room to find out that Kissy Missy was no longer there. Wow! Riley was unexpected, huh? I decided to go downstairs and make a sandwich. Riley's door was closed. She must have sneaked into my room to get her Kissy Missy while I slept. I headed to the kitchen and gave my phone a quick check. A few missed calls, all from Mr. Hudson's number. Even though it was 12 o'clock at night, I still called back to make sure everything was okay.
Oh, nothing's urgent. I just called to check.
I told him everything was great and he didn't need to worry. Then, Mr. Hudson needs to get back to work. Before ending the call, I joked to him, Riley literally fell in love with Kissy Missy again, Mr. Hudson. It took me a lot to drag it to your room, but Riley sneaked in to take it back. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. But somehow, I knew my neighbor hadn't hung up yet. Seeming to realize something, his voice turned strangely urgent.
Get Riley now. Get her, and you both get out of that house.
I couldn't digest it.
Riley never ever wakes up in the middle of the night. Never.
Just then I heard screams. The fear spiked. I dropped my phone and rushed upstairs, but it was too late. The window was wide open, and Riley was nowhere to be found. Kissy Missy was collapsing right next to the bed, fur sticking out of its back, revealing an empty space inside. I lived in a dormitory. My roommate was Adam. He is the same age as me, but a head taller than me. I'm a skinny, nerdy college student who likes to spend time online and playing games alone. As for Adam, although he always wore a hoodie, I know for sure behind that shirt was a tall, muscular body. He must have been the desire of many girlfriends. Despite his appearance, Adam is quite taciturn and quiet. We don't talk to each other much. I also respect his privacy, so I don't often ask questions. Like me, Adam usually stays in his room all weekend. He will be out of the house only on Friday night between 8 p.m. and 11 p.m. So, it was a Friday night. As usual, when Adam went out, I opened Omegle to meet and talk to strangers. You know, guys like me don't usually get the chance to make friends in real life. After skipping through a few boring chat frames, I stopped. I came across a familiar scene. The structure, painted walls, are exactly the same as the dorm room I was in. However, strangely, in the middle of that room was a table and a chair. He didn't say no, quietly eating the bowl of soup in front of him. Hello, late dinner, huh? No one replied. It was only then that I noticed his odd appearance. Why on earth did he have to eat haggardly like that? He seems to be very hungry, but at the same time, so reluctantly. And if I'm not mistaken, I saw his tears rolling down his cheeks. Weird, I thought. At that moment, another figure appeared. In that dark space, I could only see the person's arm outstretched. He has an axe tattooed above his wrist. The arm kept stroking the boy, but this only made him shiver even more. This must be a joke. I left a message. Freaks, you guys are boring, and left the chat room. The phone fell to the ground, startling me. Looking up at the clock, it was already 2 a.m. I've been asleep since when, I don't even know. Adam was back. Suddenly I thought of the guy eating the soup. Curiosity aroused. I rummaged up and opened my computer to see if the show had ended. Jesus, what happened? On the other side of the screen was a horrifying scene. The boy just now had his face down on the table. The bowl of soup spilled out. A slimy liquid spilled all over the table. What? I glued my eyes on the screen. It's the weirdest soup I've ever seen. On the table was a red mixture. Crammed in the middle was what looked like minced meat. My body shook with fear. I panicked. My whole body, including the chair, fell backwards. It's disgusting. What the hell? Hearing the loud noise, Adam seemed to have woken up and ran to me to ask. I was still breathing heavily, unable to speak, only trembling to point at the screen. That guy, he seems dead. Adam helped me sit back on the bed. Okay, calm down. Tell me everything you know. Wait. This is the first time I've seen Adam not wearing a hoodie. And on top of his wrist is the tattoo of an axe.
The Millers have 2 daughters, Clara and Ellen. Unfortunately, Ellen, the older sister, was born with a birth defect and spent the rest of her life in a wheelchair. It was a snowy day. Clara and Ellen just came home, and immediately her mother complained.
Clara, did you scare your friends with spiders? The teacher called me again.
Clara sighed, so her mother knew it. But because her parents were very indulgent, she would get away with it this time. As she thought, she put on a pitiful expression and said,
No, Mom, she made a fuss about it. It was just a prank.
Because she was protected by Ellen, she got rid of the crime. Then, Clara pushed Ellen's wheelchair up the stairs and went to her room.
Seriously? I only got 20,000 views for this video?
As soon as she opened TikTok, Clara was extremely angry. Actually, what the teacher said is not quite wrong. Not only did Clara bring spiders to scare her friend, but she also forced her to eat them alive. Clara responded with a shrill laugh.
No one dares to save you!
While struggling to find a new way to increase the view, she suddenly heard her mom calling for dinner. Clara just turned around and was startled because Ellen had been waiting for her at the door since. As soon as she saw Clara, Ellen quickly turned away. At that moment, Clara had a crazy idea. Ellen's leg wouldn't feel anything anyway, Clara thought. Then she hurriedly called down.
Mom, we're coming!
While setting the phone to recording mode, Clara slowly pushed down Ellen's wheelchair. She only went half of her way when the chair suddenly shook and Ellen fell down the stairs.
Ellen! Ellen, no!
Clara screamed, but she couldn't hold her sister in time. As soon as she heard the noise, Mrs. Miller rushed out of the kitchen, and witnessing this scene, she was stunned. Ellen collapsed at the bottom of the stairs, and due to the fall from above, the joint of her leg was broken and twisted backward. Even the wrist was no longer in its original joint shape. Ellen lost consciousness, and Mrs. Miller quickly dialed 911. No one noticed Miller's eerie smile as she pressed the save video button. 2 weeks later, Ellen had to stay at home. Since that video, Clara's TikTok view has significantly increased. Some praised, some criticized, but in the end, they all just considered it an incident. Recently, Clara had run out of ideas. She came back to a lot of things: music, punk rock fashion, and videos forcing her friends to eat worms. But nothing seemed to attract as many views as the scene where Ellen falls down the stairs. So Clara decided to make another video with Ellen, but this time she would be more creative. On a cold February evening, when the Millers were asleep and Ellen climbed onto a bed by herself, the house sank into the stillness of sleep. But there was one person who hadn't slept, and that was Clara. She was in the kitchen and streaming on TikTok.
Okay, guys, this is all we need.
Clara took out a sharp knife from the kitchen. Then she headed straight to the second-floor bedroom where Ellen was sleeping. Clara stroked her sister's serene face, curious about this face in a few more minutes.
Let's do this!
Clara looked into the camera and then slowly raised the sharp knife. With one hand, she pressed the rag to her sister's mouth and held it tight. With the other hand, she stabbed her sister with a strong, decisive blow to her stomach. Ellen woke up in a panic. Before she could understand what was going on, the next slash continued to fall, and then another to another slash. Ellen's pain was in her bones. She tried to struggle, but couldn't get rid of it. All Ellen could do was to let out a hum.
Don't spoil the evening.
As soon as she finished speaking, Clara stabbed the knife straight into Ellen's neck. Blood spurted from it, splashing all over her face and clothes. God, Clara didn't think things would get this messy. She quickly covered the pillow over the face and neck of Ellen, who was now struggling on the bed. However, the layer of blood quickly soaked the pillow. It felt like enough now. Clara ended the stream, then quietly went outside the house and called 911.
Clara Miller, 14, was arrested at the scene. The murder happened while the Millers were sleeping, and no one knew about it. Due to blood loss, the victim did not survive and officially died at 4 a.m. today. A video is becoming viral on TikTok, believed to be the video the murderer shot right after stabbing her sister to...
I stabbed my sister. I stabbed my sister. I stabbed my sister. I stabbed my sister. I stabbed my sister.
It took me a couple of weeks to find affordable accommodation. It was the Celine Hotel, with a pretty cheap rental rate, even being located in the center of downtown Los Angeles. So, I booked a room without hesitation. Sharing a room with me was a girl from Canada named Sharon. Sharon was quite weird. I mean, most of the time she showed a cold or grumpy face, which made it hard to strike up a conversation with her. More than once I saw her violently throw her bottles of medicine into the trash, but then just pick them up and put them back in her backpack. I guess she was suffering from some kind of illness. I felt for her, but her strange behavior really made me sick. I often heard her mumbling something as if she was pissed off. Probably she was implying me, but I was unsure as she didn't even look at me. One day, when I was about to change my clothes, Sharon suddenly swung the door open. She rushed and panicked while frantically rummaging through her luggage.
This is not good. This is not good.
She mumbled. That was so rude of her, and I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to have an intervention with Sharon, so I moved slowly toward her.
Hey, Sharon?
No, no, no!
She shouted.
Can't take it anymore!
Then she turned around and grabbed my wrist. I didn't expect a petite girl like Sharon to be so strong. My wrist was squeezed so tightly that I started to feel the pain. Sharon panted, her bloodshot eyes staring at me with her gnashing teeth. She was going crazy.
Sharon!
I called her name in agony while her hand was still brutally crushing my wrist.
Why don't you let me go?
Sharon yelled, but I didn't understand what she was saying.
Why?
She suddenly grabbed my shoulder. I was really scared at this point. I used all my strength to push her hand away. God, she squeezed horribly.
Why? Why?
She still couldn't stop screaming. I had no choice but to push her so hard that she fell, then run away from the room before she could do anything worse. That's enough of it. I couldn't bear it any longer. Immediately, I informed the receptionist to move Sharon to another room. When the hotel manager came to my room very soon after, I laid still in bed and watched Sharon pack her things up. At that moment, she just looked at me, her eyes strangely sad. She dragged the suitcase and followed the hotel manager without saying a word. That day, when I took a shower, I realized the water pressure seemed to be weak with an unusual smell. So I turned off the faucet and then went to bed. In the middle of the night, while dreaming, I suddenly woke up to see a figure standing in the corner of the room. That hoodie reminded me of Sharon.
Sharon?
For a moment I breathed a sigh of relief, but just a second later, I had a sense that something was wrong. Her whole body was drenched in water. I could clearly hear the dripping sound on the floor. Her hair was tangled in clumps. Her limbs were swollen and mottled. Sharon just stood there with her head down for a while. Then suddenly she walked away. For unknown reasons, I subconsciously followed Sharon even though I was stiff and terrified.
Sharon? Where are we going?
She didn't answer, but led me to the elevator. Sharon stared at the elevator buttons without saying a word. We walked through the hallway with bright red lights until we met a locked iron door. Sharon stopped. She suddenly turned her head. Her eye sockets were a black hole from which 2 lines of black water flowed. Her face was pale, puffy, with her mouth wide open. I woke up startled, sweat drenching my pillow. In the stillness of the night, I could even hear my heart pounding in my chest. It was just a nightmare. The phone kept ringing for a while. That was a call from the hotel manager. He declared Sharon was missing. They showed me the camera footage. Oh my God, Sharon! She was showing signs of strange behavior in the hotel elevator, as if hiding from someone. I was even more shocked when I realized that the time displayed on the camera was the day Sharon got mad. The police told me not to leave the hotel during this time. The missing case of Sharon was really shocking. Everyone was searching for her. I returned to the bathroom to wash my face. Then I found the water had an unpleasant stench. It even had an abnormal color, brownish and a rotten smell like sewage. I couldn't take this anymore, so I decided to report it to the hotel manager. It turned out I wasn't the only one having trouble with the water. A married couple on the same floor also complained of drinking water with a strange smell. A maintenance worker, together with the hotel manager, inspector, and the police, went to the rooftop to check the water tanks. And when the heavy roof manhole was gradually opened, everyone was all shocked and terrified. That was strangers. With just one click, you can meet anyone from anywhere, no matter who they are. But eventually, those ordinary video calls lost their charm. So I made a new prank. Voila! I put the makeup on with a little blood, some bruises, and weird costumes, then sat in front of the laptop and waited. When they got connected, on the screen would appear a girl in a white dress. The light would flash for a while and then turn off. After a few seconds, when the light suddenly was back on, a bloody face would jump in, which definitely would scare the piss out of them. I burst out laughing when my prank made a guy jump out of his skin. "Seriously, dude, this prank is on point," he said. Their reactions weren't too bad, so I thought I was good at my role, so I gave it a few updates. This time when I opened the video chat frame, there was a guy who was dressed as Pennywise the Clown. As normal, the screen suddenly went black. A scream of terror resounded through the air. A white face covered in blood appeared on the screen, startling the masked man. "Hey, you think this is funny?" The strange man pointed to the screen and said in a deep voice,
"It's a prank. Take it easy, bro."
I frowned slightly. "A prank? Are you an airhead? Do you want to die or something?" He said and jumped toward the screen, and I swear at that moment, he scared the hell out of me. He gave me a snigger and then ended the call.
"Up yours,"
I murmured. After the first failure, I didn't call it a day, so I kept clicking the new chat box. However, the screen showed that man again.
"What the hell?"
I told myself. "You again." His rough voice came out. He was holding a cleaver in his hand. Something didn't feel right to me, so I clicked the new chat box without saying another word. This time was still that freaky man. "You think you can get away from me?" That voice again froze me in 1 second. "Wrong. I know who you are and where you live." That man was insane. His white eyes opened violently like a dead fish toward the camera. "I will find you and peel your skin and suck your blood and make your hair a wig. I will make you pay for your goddamn prank." While speaking, he pressed his face closer and closer to the screen. He laughed like crazy, which made me petrified. Needless to say, I immediately turned off Omegle and the laptop. The next day, I went to a Target shop for some groceries. On the way back, I had a feeling like someone was following me. But when I turned around, no one was there. "Weird," I mumbled. All I could hear were the footsteps of myself and someone behind me. When I stopped, he stopped. When I went, he followed. Someone was following me. so I suddenly turned my head. But no one to be seen. It's just me and the long, empty road. The next day, I went out for groceries again. Found you! A familiar voice startled me. I turned around, and right behind was that man, the crazy guy with the Pennywise costume. No time to think. I immediately ran away, but he quickly caught up. I ran through the alleys, panicking when I heard those footsteps behind me. I hid behind the wall, trying to hold my heavy breath. Felt like my heart was about to explode out of my chest. Boom! That man suddenly, from nowhere, jumped in front of me. The eyes of his white face widened. His mouth opened with a stench and sharp teeth, as if he wanted to eat me alive. It's time to pay for the prank! He screamed while chasing after me. I couldn't die this way. I had to run for my life. My house was only a few steps away, and finally, I rushed into my house. Nearly exhausted, I used the last of my power to latch the lock inside. I ran up into my room, jumped into bed, and covered myself with a blanket. I never thought this would happen to me. My friend asked me why I was offline and if I still did my prank. I couldn't tell him how I was put in danger with my silly prank. Now that I was safe, I lay there and fell asleep. When I woke up, it was already dark. I crept out of bed, moved toward the window, and opened it. The man wasn't there. I guess he had finished his joke and given me up. So I opened Omegle again, and felt so relieved there was no sign of Pennywise the clown. Feeling hungry, I decided to go downstairs and find something to eat. Just then, I saw my sister opening the door to let someone in.
Robbie, say hi to our new neighbor. He's just moved in,
she said, and went to the kitchen to take a drink. The guest smiled at me and gave me a gift box. For you. He was so kind. I said thanks as I received his gift box and unboxed it. But as soon as I did, my face turned pale and I dropped it on the floor. At that moment, I heard the door lock. Inside the box was a Pennywise mask. The friendly neighbor turned out to be the one I always dreaded. He wasn't friendly anymore. Instead, he grinned and said, "Gotcha!" Just another Saturday night, my wife and daughter and I went to IKEA for some furniture. We wanted to prepare for our beloved child, who was already of school age. We planned to have dinner somewhere and then go shopping. When dinner was over, I told them to hang on a second and then got to the bathroom. But after seeing a long queue at the restaurant restroom, I decided to find another one. Luckily, there was a bathroom for guests downstairs.
Finally, thank God.
A guy ran over me. He must have been in an awful rush. I opened the door just 5 seconds after him to see the narrow white hallway, but that man just disappeared. I walked around but couldn't find any restrooms inside. Here came another door. This must be it, I mumbled and quickly opened it. Oh my goodness, I was surprised to see behind the door a lot of shelves with boxes, so no bathroom. I was disappointed. This was just a warehouse instead of a toilet. I turned back angrily, but in front of me was a wall. What the hell was going on? Where was the door I had just gone through? Unable to hold it any longer, I found an old empty box and peed inside of it. 15 minutes had passed since I left the table. I called my wife to help me find the way out. No signal. Things started to get out of control. I had to find a way out of here as soon as possible. I found a knife on the shelf, so I grabbed it to protect myself, then walked slowly forward. How can IKEA have such a huge warehouse? Furniture piled up here. Had anyone else gotten lost in here before? I kept going straight ahead, hoping to find the exit. It had been a while. My wife and daughter must be worried.
so I kept walking on aimlessly. An hour passed. I was so scared. I screamed for help, but no one heard. I tried to use the GPS on my phone to find the location, but it didn't work without signal, like a rat caught in a trap. I was almost crazy. Suddenly, I caught a glimpse of a yellow figure wearing an IKEA uniform from afar. I was saved. I'd better run to him soon, or else I would have to stay here all night since it was almost closing time. So I ran and called out, "Excuse me! Excuse me! Could you help me get out of here?" But that person didn't seem to hear me. He stood there, emotionless, and turned his back on me. "Pardon me, could you help?" But I didn't feel better. A shiver went down my spine when I saw a faceless creature wearing an IKEA uniform. His two unusually large hands were hanging loose. I stepped back shakingly, but it didn't seem to notice me. I quickly crept away from there, and at that moment, I realized that more and more such creatures appeared around.
It's closing time. Please leave the store.
That announcement was like a signal for these freak creatures to be alive. They all started to move. Sensing the danger, I started running from that place. The monsters rushed towards me. Holding the knife firmly in my hand, I started slashing at them repeatedly. They weren't fast, but there were so many of them, and I was soon exhausted. I felt hopeless. Perhaps I would die here this way. They were too numerous to kill all of them. Suddenly, one of them grabbed my legs, and they reached out their arms toward me. Was I ready to die? No. I thought about my family while trying to crawl out, but I was getting weaker and weaker. My hand went numb, the knife fell from my fingers, and my eyes were blurred with sweat and blood. And in front of me was just an empty wall. Wall? Wall? At that point, a door suddenly appeared in front of me, as if finding a light at the end of the path. I grabbed the knife, trying to get to the door before it disappeared. I thought I had escaped from this infinite space, but I was wrong. The door led me to another dimension. I'd just entered a loophole in IKEA. And through this distance, I saw a creature in IKEA uniform, standing there motionless, like a statue. No! No! No!
Oh, shit! Welcome to Hawaii.
Chloe put a white shell necklace on me and kissed me on the cheek. Wow, it's so beautiful. Thank you. Then I was taken to a motel near the center. It was strange to see that the place was pretty quiet even in the traveling season.
The guests are all gone for sightseeing,
Chloe explained. The daughter of the motel owner, Chloe, was confident that she knew the island very well. She wanted to be my tour guide, and I said yes. So we took a tour in Hawaii, to the traditional market for some cuisine, and then to Waikiki Beach.
Where are you going?
I'm thirsty. I'm going to buy some water.
Let me go with you.
Well, okay. I found it a bit odd when Chloe tried to stay near me all the time. She even followed me to the bathroom door. Well, you don't have to follow me all the time, you know.
No, you are a special guest.
Then we met Chloe's boyfriend, Kai. As soon as Kai saw me, he shook my hand, hugged me, and kissed my cheek in the Hawaiian tradition. Aha! Welcome to Hawaii, my friend. Kai patted me on the back as if we had known each other for years. So Kai and Chloe took me around together. I was probably walking too fast or something, but the two of them kept falling behind my back. After a day on the streets, I felt quite tired, so I wanted to get back to the motel. But unexpectedly, Kai and Chloe came along.
We have to make sure you're okay.
You're a special guest. Well, thank you very much. Kai behaved so weird. He wasn't angry even when seeing Chloe laughing and getting close to me. Getting back to my room, I took a shower and then decided to go outside for a breeze. However, when I walked to the door and looked through the peephole, I was startled. What's wrong with them? I felt uncomfortable, so I opened the door. Hi, is there something wrong? No, not at all.
Actually, we wanted to invite you to the beach party.
Oh, I was reading into it. Wow, I'd love to. I was watching the pictures when there was a knock on the door. It was Kai and Chloe.
It's time.
Chloe handed me a glass of red wine. It'll bring you luck. Oh, this is so strong. I was surprised, and not until they both stood up and stared at me did I feel dizzy. There was something in the cup of wine. Before I completely passed out, I saw Chloe and Kai grin evilly. When I woke up, still a bit dizzy, I found myself tied to a pillar and Chloe busy doing something. She said something to Kai and he turned to me. Although I was scared, I pretended to faint to find a chance to escape. I listened to the conversation between the two and couldn't help but shiver. Were they planning for a sacrifice? Then my life would be at stake. When Kai untied the rope to bring me to Chloe, I quickly bit his ear. Kai screamed in pain and pushed me aside. I took that chance to run away. No time to see the direction. I just followed the small path and ran into the forest. While running, I could still hear Kai chasing from behind. The more I was scared, the more I tried to run, not daring to stop even for a second. I didn't dare to stop running until making sure they stopped chasing. Where was I right now? In front of me was a corpse tied to the tree. On its neck was a white shell necklace that looked exactly like the one Chloe had given me. It reminded me of the strange feeling I had when arriving at the motel. The feeling of being completely deserted.
They've all gone out for sightseeing.
Only now did I understand what kind of sightseeing Chloe was referring to. Suddenly, Kai appeared in front of my eyes and pushed me to the ground. He rushed to grab my neck. I was so scared, panicked, and struggled. And in the moment when I thought I was about to suffocate, I, fortunately, grabbed a stone. I used all my strength to hit him on the head. He screamed in pain to let go of me. I immediately ran away. No longer seeing any of them behind, I kept running down the small path until finally escaping the forest.
The streets are full of scenes like this, though the cause of the pandemic is undefined. The victim seems to transform after being bitten. While the treatment is being made, please stay home and wait for rescue.
Oh my god, it's coming! It's coming! Run! I'm a top student of a famous medical school. I spent most of the time studying with Mr. Drake at a lab. It's a classified project about inventing a new virus that increases human strength and speed. Half a month ago, we almost solved this complicated math problem after 7 years of studying. There it is, this virus that can change the whole humankind. We burst into happiness, but then Mr. Drake and I had another problem. We needed volunteers. Since this was illegal, my teacher paid homeless people to join the experiment. Whatever might happen to them, nobody would care. That's what he thought. Well, speed and strength are increased, but the brain activity is significantly damaged. They're ferocious and can't remember their names. I reported this to Mr. Drake after prototype analysis. He contemplated for a minute and said, "We've got to cancel the project to find the cure." Do you mean all our effort is for nothing? Despite my worries, Mr. Drake did it anyway. In the next 2 weeks, he locked himself in the lab, and when he came back, he had a formula for the cure. We pumped it into those homeless in different concentrations, then observed. However, things didn't follow the plan. Their illness got so worse that they escaped from the lab, except for a man named Eric. No, that can't be! It's supposed to work! My teacher screamed in pain when Eric, the half-human, half-zombie creature riding on the floor. That's it. Our last experiment failed. At that moment, a zombie outside seemed to scent me and Mr. Drake. He slammed into the door and wheezed. Its drooling was so disgusting. I was wide awake, sputtering hurriedly. We must end Eric's life. Release him! Meanwhile, my teacher was too upset to care about anything. I freaked out. I held a sharpened table leg nearby and slowly came to Eric. He seemed to scent danger and get more and more violent. His disfigured face, bloody eyes, and sharp teeth wanted to tear me apart. The table where Drake tied Eric was shaking like it was about to burst. The rope could not hold him for longer, so I needed to hurry. Suddenly, Eric bowed down and did something weird to his arm. Eric? Did the cure work? No, it can't be. Eric, he was biting his arm. The skin and the arm started tearing apart. Pieces of muscle and flesh splattered everywhere. Suddenly, his arm fell down to the floor, and he rushed to me. Under a sudden attack, I could only raise my arms to prevent Eric from attacking. His stinky breath and wheezing breath were so close, just some inches away from my face. I tried to push him, but it didn't work. After the transformation, he had reached the level of strength and speed that humans could not reach. He was closer and closer, and I closed my eyes, nearly giving up. Suddenly, Eric fell down. Mr. Drake gave Eric a shot right to his head. He fell onto me. His brain splattered. His fluid splashed all over my face, and I could even smell it. I pushed Eric aside, got rid of the blood, and stood up. My teacher stood dazedly in the corner. Are you okay? If it were not for him, I would probably end up like zombies. The thick layer of blood stuck to my skin and made it very difficult for me to get rid of it. Thank you, I'm okay. Just as I finished my words, I noticed a small bite on my left arm. My heart jumped. Oh no, Eric bit me while we were fighting? Drake seemed to know what was happening because I saw the changes on his face. No, that can't be. I can't be infected. But then my body went cold. My blood was boiling, and I could feel pain all over my body. I saw Mr. Drake step closer. He tried so hard while slowly aiming at me. I'm so sorry. You don't deserve all of this. No, please don't. I want to live.
The authorities have taken things under control. As reported, the cause of the pandemic is from the lab of X University. However, when the defense team came, there was no life found.
The Mayhem Amusement Park had a scary rumor that the Mayhem roller coaster tracks would take you to a mysterious area where you would be stuck forever. That rumor began to spread after many people went missing while riding the roller coaster. This park had to close after only 2 years of operation and became a deserted place. But that was 10 years ago. This summer, the Mayhem Mountain roller coaster would reopen to guests. As true risk-takers, Chris and Joanna couldn't miss this tour to examine the rumor. After 10 years abandoned, everything here was quite old and dilapidated. and the tracks looked a bit ramshackle. Even though it was reopened, it still looked eerily deserted.
Hi, wanna ride a roller coaster?
He had makeup on like a clown with a red nose. He looked so sloppy in that staff uniform.
Sure.
Joanna hesitated a bit, even though that was exactly their main purpose when getting there.
Of course, but I have to gather a few more passengers. Can you wait a few minutes? This ride may start later than usual.
How late?
Joanna asked.
About 12 a.m. But don't worry, a roller coaster ride only lasts for 15 minutes.
The clown replied. He seemed very impatient. Joanna looked at Chris, and they both agreed.
All right, just a few minutes waiting.
And then they sat down to wait. But after a while, there were no more guests, and the clown wasn't around.
All right, a little bit less passengers than usual, but enough for today.
The man finally came back. Joanna and Chris looked at each other confused. But the good thing was they didn't have to wait for another day to explore the ride. The clown quickly led them up the stairs and seated them carefully.
Remember to fasten your seatbelt and do not scream,
the clown repeatedly told them.
Don't scream? What a freak,
Chris mumbled. Joanna didn't notice her friend's words because what bothered her more was the clown's weird glance at them, and his hands were scratching each other, harder and harder. Soon after the two people got on the roller coaster, the seatbelts tightened around them stably. Joanna and Chris looked at each other, and before they could say anything, the roller coaster moved. A feeling of euphoria made Joanna shiver. The roller coaster raced at full speed through each rotation, and fortunately, Joanna was able to suppress her screams. As for Chris, he was extremely excited and shouted at the top of his lungs. One round, then two, and three. They soon became dizzy. The train still raced like a beast, ripping through the fog. At this point, Joanna began to notice something strange. Joanna tried to open her eyes to see the clown in the control booth, but there was no one there. She panicked, and Chris also noticed this strange thing. He kept screaming in the hope that someone would hear his cry for help. The roller coaster kept running while they became more and more exhausted. Then, all of a sudden, the glider's screws became loose and began to screw backward. Joanna and Chris grabbed all the nails that fell out from the vehicle. The roller coaster kept accelerating as if it would never stop. At that moment, Joanna saw a familiar figure standing below. And as the roller coaster pulled her closer to that side, Joanna realized in horror it was the clown. He was smiling devilishly. His mouth was wide open with those lifeless eye sockets. He was enjoying their suffering. The vehicle began to wobble more than ever, and they could no longer hold it back. It continued to roll over. Chris's screams tore up the still air. The seatbelt popped out. Joanna and Chris almost fell out, but they still managed to hold on the tramp. Chris's whole body was floating in the air. His hand started to slip away, but he still didn't want to cling to Joanna. Joanna couldn't take it anymore. The roller coaster moved to the final station and began to slow to a stop, and she didn't have the strength to do anything else. At this moment, the clown walked up to Joanna. Next to him were 3 fierce dogs. Joanna could clearly see drools running down their sharp teeth.
It's itself in creating a fun, family-friendly environment. Still, every job has its horror stories, and I'm here to bring you one of those about Hooters, about what's behind those pretty faces and hot bodies. Grace was a good friend of mine. We first met at a book club and had hung out since then. She was also a Hooters girl. She was like Marilyn Monroe with the face of an angel. Anyways, that day, Grace asked me to pick her up after work because her car broke down. That was my first visit to Hooters.
Janet, come here. Don't be shy.
Grace told me over the phone.
It's okay. I'll wait here.
Come on, it's going to be a long wait.
Honestly, I couldn't refuse her anymore. I stepped into the restaurant and I was surprised. I thought this was full of male guests, but it turned out they were of all ages and genders, and all the waitresses were so hospitable and nice, and they were so beautiful. One of them took me to the table to wait for Grace, who was now busy taking orders.
Hey, cutie, wanna hang out for a night?
That drunk man over there said to Grace. She seemed annoyed, but still smiled.
When his hand moved down to her waist, she grabbed it and pushed it away.
Damn!
He gave a smack on Grace's cheek. Ah! Hey! I ran over and shoved him.
You bastard!
That man was about to fight back, but a few guests got to stop him.
Are you okay?
I went to help Grace, but she pushed my hand away. Her cheek was still red.
Sorry, my friend is new here.
It's none of your business. Grace turned back to the man, whispered to him, and winked.
Okay, baby.
The man licked his lips, then followed her.
Grace, stop it. He was trying to harass.
I stopped Grace on the way.
Just stay out of this.
Grace gritted her teeth, then turned to smile at the man and went inside the staff room. Something was wrong. It had been an hour since they went into the room. What if my friend was harmed? I couldn't stay here like this. I must go look for her. While the other girls were busy, I snuck inside. The door wasn't locked, so I went in. It was so quiet here.
Where can she be?
I muttered as I walked around the room. There was nobody there. I looked around and was startled. Laughter seemed to come from behind the wall. I touched the wooden wall. Maybe there was something inside this painting. Suddenly, the wall cracked open. There was a secret door. I went in before it closed. The hallway was quite dark and even quieter than the room. After going through a few turns, I saw an old door without a room or number.
Maybe they are here.
I pushed the door and went in. Although the light was weak, I could still see things quite clearly, including those I shouldn't have seen.
On the floor, there was a man lying. His whole body was white and pale. His eyes rolled back as if he had been drained of blood. Standing around him were 4 or 5 girls, including Grace. They were... Janet, didn't I tell you to wait? Scared and shocked, my limbs stiffened. I couldn't say a word. As Grace moved closer to me, my heart was about to explode. I used all of my strength to run away. Fortunately, the secret door hadn't closed yet. When I stepped out of that room, everyone looked at me. I didn't know what to say or explain because I was so scared and panicked that I ran out and drove away without daring to look back. I called the police and was horrified to learn that many more bodies had been discovered in that room. But those Hooter girls, including my book club friend Grace, had disappeared. Although I have moved to another city, the experience at Hooters still haunts me. Sometimes when I'm driving past a Hooters
horror story that haunts me until today. 10 years ago, when I was a 17-year-old girl, my mom asked me to babysit the neighbor's kid because they had to go to a party. Well, of course, I couldn't say no to her. However, the kid that I was supposed to babysit was 16 years old. His name was Tyler. He suffered from an intellectual disability, and people said that his mind was like a 5-year-old.
Hi.
I tried to be friendly, but Tyler gave me a really frightened glance. I mean, really frightened.
Goodbye and enjoy the party, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson.
I waved my hand as I closed the door. There were only me and Tyler in the house now.
So, I'm Tammy. Your name is Tyler, isn't it?
But Tyler didn't care at all. He only focused on finishing his painting stuff.
Tammy, could you please turn off the TV?
Okay. What are you painting?
I was curious. Tyler still didn't answer.
Can I join too?
Tyler nodded his head instead of saying a word. So we were both coloring and painting our own works of art.
Are you hungry?
I asked. Tyler nodded while painting attentively.
I'll make you something. What would you like to eat?
Up to you.
Tyler mumbled. So I went to the kitchen and prepared some sandwiches which were Tyler's favorite. When I came back, Tyler was no longer painting his picture. He was sitting there and mumbling.
Go out? I can't. Mommy won't let me. Can I? Where are you? Really? My babysitter?
Tyler?
I was a bit freaked out, though. After hearing my voice, he stopped mumbling.
Here, your sandwiches.
Tyler ran to the kitchen before touching the food. I guessed he was getting his favorite orange juice. At that moment, I had a closer look at the picture on the table. I guessed it was Tyler in the picture, but there were 2 of them in the same clothes. One looked normal with a smile, and the other, gosh, he had 2 scary dark eye sockets that gave me goosebumps. I ran quickly to the kitchen. Tyler was standing still, and there was broken glass pieces on the floor.
Don't move, Tyler!
I rushed to clean the mess. Meanwhile, Tyler was still standing emotionlessly, like he was a mannequin.
Tyler! Tyler!
I shook his shoulders in panic. I didn't scold or blame Tyler for breaking the glass, as I thought it was a harmless mistake. However, Tyler seemed a little bit different, like he wasn't himself anymore.
Tammy, TV remote!
He suddenly turned to me. That was the first time he looked me straight in the eyes, and I could feel the cold shiver running down my spine.
Sure.
There was news about a serial murder on TV. It was Tyler who was giggling at the news.
Tyler, you okay?
I was a bit freaked out now.
Yeah.
He replied without even looking at me.
Should I change to a cartoon channel?
I reached out to get the remote. He quickly gripped my wrist.
If you touch it, I'ma kill you.
He said, cold-blooded. I quickly pulled my hand back. There was something strange and scary about him. Not only did he watch the murder news calmly, but he also ate a lot of snacks, which I was told was what he hated the most.
Tell me, bring me milk. Milk!
Okay.
I went to the kitchen to get the bottle of milk. While I was pouring the milk into the glass, something just popped up in my mind.
Tyler, you're lactose intolerant, aren't you?
My body was frozen when I saw Tyler standing in the middle of the room.
She knew.
No! Don't hurt her! Shut up!
You got to kill her.
Tyler!
Tyler turned around, staring at me with his dark eye sockets. In his hand was a sharp knife.
Tyler, where did you get that?
I stepped back. Tyler didn't hear my voice anymore.
Tyler, drop the knife down.
I tried to keep calm.
No! No! You have to die!
That voice wasn't Tyler's anymore. And before he rushed over with the knife, I ran quickly outside and locked the door. I tried to call Mr. and Mrs. Wilson in a panic, realizing how frightened I was. They immediately left the party and called 911. When Tyler's parents came home with the police, Tyler was back to normal. No one believed me, no matter how many times I tried to explain. Even though 10 years have passed now, I still couldn't forget what happened that day. The day Tyler, the neighbor kid that I babysat, was replaced by his evil and cruel personality.
My name is Vanessa. I'm a full-time employee at KFC restaurant. This wasn't my favorite job, but it was my main source of income, so I guessed I had no choice. My boyfriend and I lived in a shabby apartment. Most of the time, our dinner was the leftovers I brought from work. Things seemed to be fine, until one night. It was a Saturday night. The restaurant was incredibly crowded, so I had to work from the morning to late night. While I was cleaning the table, I noticed a new customer sitting at a table in the corner. He was frantically waving at me. I thought he wanted to order, so I went toward him. He turned out to be a mime artist, and he was grinning. "What would you like to order, sir?" I gave him the menu, but this guy just stared at me and started performing like we were in a play. Looking at his gestures, I guessed he wanted chicken and fries. Something about this guy made me feel uncomfortable. With that plus the fatigue, I couldn't keep polite manners anymore. "Here's your chicken." His smiling face distorted in an instant. He stood up and did some boxing moves. I was too tired to say anything back, and that seemed to make him angrier. He raised his hand to make a shooting gesture. "If you don't order anything, then just leave," I mumbled. His face darkened. He put his hands behind his back and slowly moved toward me. I thought that was an attack, but it turned out he was trying to stab me with an imaginary knife. I admitted that this silly trick startled me for a second, but it didn't make him less ridiculous at all. So I grabbed a random imaginary rock and threw it at that jerk. He frantically dodged and ran out of the door while clutching his head. That stupid reaction made me burst out laughing. Today was not too bad for me. When my boyfriend Mark came to pick me up, I told him about the mime guy. We laughed and talked all the way home. When we got to the building and walked to our apartment, I saw someone dressing as a mime artist in a hidden corner of the hallway.
"You okay? Are you tired?"
Mark handed me a chicken thigh while seeing me bewildered. Probably the mime guy. Even so, I wouldn't be afraid of him because he was just a freak. For the next few days, I went to work in the morning and got the leftovers home at night as usual. It started snowing outside. After leaving work, I didn't see Mark waiting for me as usual. I tried to call him, but he didn't pick up the phone, so I got mad at him and walked home without him. As I reached home, I rushed to bed and fell asleep right away without even changing my clothes. The doorbell woke me up. I reluctantly went to the door to see through the peephole. I recognized Mark by his green beanie, but he was standing with his back to the door, maybe with something surprising. I opened the door, mumbling, "Did you forget the key again? Where have you been?" But that person wasn't Mark. That was the mime guy with the white painted face. I just looked at him in shock. He took off his hat, bowed to me, and grinned again. Then suddenly he saw something. He slipped past me and went straight to the KFC chicken bag on the table. What the hell is going on? He took the chicken out onto the table, then rubbed his hands together as if he were very hungry. He picked up a chicken thigh and began to devour it. Then suddenly he stopped chewing. His eyes lit up as if catching up with a new idea. He turned to me and made a gesture of enjoying the fries and ketchup. I couldn't keep watching this jerk burst into the house and eat Mark's food without permission. I jumped in and yanked the food out of his hand.
Get out! I called the cops!
His face darkened and he acted as if he pulled something out from behind his back. I still thought it was an imaginary knife, so I grabbed it. I could feel the pain and blood started to flow out. The sharp blade of the knife stabbed in my hand, but it wasn't enough for him. He kept stabbing me with the knife, but I managed to dodge. I ran out of the room, terrified, while that crazy man chased me right behind. I rushed into the elevator and frantically pressed the close button. The moment he was about to hit me again, the elevator closed and the knife fell right in front of me. I crouched in the corner. Couldn't believe such terrible things had happened to me. When the police arrived, the only thing they found at the messy scene was a bloody knife with no fingerprints. A few days later, they found Mark's body buried in snow near the KFC restaurant. The mime's identity was never found. After that, I quit my job and never even dared to step into any KFC again. For many nights, I woke up startled and saw in the corner of the room, there was that freaky mime holding a bag of KFC chicken and smiling at
me. It was so good to see my bros again after not seeing each other for a long time. So I drank a little too much. Even so, I decided to drive home. My house was 15 miles from here. On my way home, I had to pass a large field surrounded by no houses or buildings. But I was used to it after thousands of times driving past there at night, so it was okay. While I was driving, I thought about the video my friend just showed me at the party. What if I bumped into those things? I looked at the dash cam. Nonsense. If those tried to scare me, I would beat the shit out of them. Oh, shoot! I was startled and turned the steering wheel so fast that my van almost hit the tree trunk on the sidewalk. The engine started to smoke, which made me worry. I got out of the car to check it. Well, the damage was minor, but I was worried about the smoking engine. God damn it! If whatever or whoever did this to my vehicle were here, I would beat them up. You better hide well, prick! I got back to the van to check the dash cam, but couldn't see that person no matter how many times I replayed the recording. Gosh! Maybe I drank too much alcohol. I backed my van onto the road to head home. But just as I started the engine, there was a person standing in the corner 10 feet from me. That was the thing that caused the damage to my vehicle. There you are. I immediately ran out of the car to get him. You better not run! Not until I got close did I realize it was a woman. She was wearing a dirty white dress. She was bending down as though she were looking for something. Her long hair covered her whole face. Hey! I screamed so loud my ears went deaf. Never in my life did I see such a horrible face. My brain was totally paralyzed. I'd just met a real ghost. I ran as fast as I could to the car and tried to rush out of there. Oh, shoot! That woman, no, that thing started to move, and it headed towards me. I shakingly inserted the car key. Damn it! Finally, the car worked. I threw the car into reverse and stepped on the gas, but it kept moving forward instead. I could feel my car had just run over something, but no time to care anymore. I tried to get off of that street. What the heck just happened? I sat behind the wheel shaking, then looked at the rearview mirror. That thing was still there staring at me leaving, but when I turned around, it disappeared. How come? I stopped the car to calm myself and checked the dash cam once more to find nothing useful. Or that was all my imagination? Hallucination? Maybe. Suddenly, there was a cry from somewhere. which startled me, and then vanished when I tried to locate the direction. Where did the cry come from in the middle of the night? There came that thing again. I felt my whole body frozen when it turned up. It stood there with a stick, its head moving slowly from left to right and then back and forth. What the? I screamed, "Back off!" while trying to turn back. I said, "Back off!" The creepy creature moved towards me, and then it started to speed up, its head shaking like that of a doll. I was so scared, I pushed the gas and my van hit the sidewalk. Maybe I hit something before I fainted. The next morning, I was in the town hospital. They found my van in the middle of the field and told me that maybe I was so drunk that I hit a tree that night. I tried to recall my memory. That ghost or whatever it was that real?
A dead woman's body was found in the middle of the field.
They found her.
Day of my life.
What an exhausting day.
There was a groan from somewhere outside the store. Lucy cautiously peeked out to see. It was a ragged homeless man. He was staring at the frozen meat counter. His mouth was drooling. His bloodshot eyes were wide open. His hand slid across the glass, which made a creaking sound. Lucy timidly asked,
Sir, how can I help you?
But he didn't say a word, just let out annoying, heavy breathing. Looking at the thin man, Lucy sighed softly.
He must have been starving for a long time.
There was brief news on TV about some apartment break-ins in the area, but Lucy didn't care much because the apartment complex she lived in had the best security. Suddenly, Lucy received a text from her roommate saying that she wouldn't be home and telling Lucy to lock the door carefully.
Never mind. Enjoy the night.
Lucy put the phone down on the table and looked up at the clock on the wall. The shift was finally over. She locked the door to check the goods before the next shift coworker arrived. Holding up a cold piece of meat, Lucy was startled by a strange noise. She turned around to find that the homeless man was still there. He licked his lips and smiled at Lucy, and then he kept banging his head on the front door like crazy. She staggered backward and slumped under the counter while the bangs grew louder until she heard the sound of a key being put into the lock and the door slightly opened. Lucy quickly grabbed a pen from the counter and stood up. The person who just walked in was David, the co-worker on the next shift. "What's wrong?" David saw her panic and felt a little confused.
Didn't you see anyone at the door?
No. Anyway, what the heck is this? Ew, that's disgusting. David looked at the glass, frowning slightly. Lucy shivered when she saw the stain, but it seemed like he had already left. The clock struck 12 o'clock, so Lucy hurriedly let David take over and quickly went out the door. She comforted herself with the thought that maybe it was just a weird customer at night. Just then on the street, there was almost no one passing by. She walked along the pavement under the yellow, dim lights. Lucy heard the annoying rustle of slippers. She turned her head to squint at every corner of the empty street, but no one was there. So she continued to walk, but after a few steps, she stopped, still hearing footsteps whispering in her ears. She looked back. It was just herself on the road. She walked faster. The rustling appeared again, seemingly speeding up like her. This time it came along with a whistling sound. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, and sweat soaked her uniform. She kept walking without daring to look back.
It's almost home. I will be fine.
Lucy reassured herself, but couldn't stop her body from shaking uncontrollably. The sound of footsteps running after Lucy became louder and more urgent. She ran up the stairs, but she was so panicked that she tripped. She suppressed the pain, picked up her things, and ran as fast as possible. Finally, Lucy frantically put the key in the lock.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
The man was so close. Footsteps and rattling of the stairs drew nearer. The whistle echoed throughout the dark corridor.
Please, please.
She finally got the key in the lock. She turned the key, rushed into the house, and slammed the door. The man also rushed in at this time, only a split second before he was able to catch Lucy. She closed the door and locked it, then gasped for air, slid to the floor, and began to cry.
Open the door, you little rat! Open it!
The man banged on the door and shouted, his hand constantly tugging at the doorknob. Lucy was panic-stricken and stepped back. Suddenly, everything fell silent. Lucy raised her head, trying to crawl up to the peephole to look outside. Suddenly, he jumped out of nowhere to meet Lucy's eyes. Knowing he couldn't do anything here, the man licked the peephole on the door and left. When there was no sound anymore, Lucy shakingly cracked open her door and stared out.
Hey!
The pervert pressed his face to the cracked door, so close that his drool splashed on her face. Lucy was frightened and stepped back. The crazy man turned the doorknob like crazy.
Open the door!
He shouted as he banged on the door. Lucy was shaking as she dialed the phone.
It's 911. What's your emergency?
Please help. Someone is trying to break into my house.
Hold on. We're on the way.
The man heard what Lucy was saying. He stopped pounding the door and left. Lucy leaned on the door, sobbing, her whole body trembling with such...
This story happened in April, a week before Easter, several years ago. I was 17 years old back then. My parents were away for the weekend, so I invited my best friend Haley to come over for a sleepover. While waiting for Haley, I turned on the TV to pass the time. Suddenly, my dog Max barked at the door. Max was a friendly dog and rarely barked like that, so I was quite surprised. I opened the window curtain to look out. Gosh, there's a man right on the other side of the door. I couldn't see his face clearly because it was dark, but he was wearing dirty clothes and a bunny mascot on his head. His creepy look gave me a shiver. The stranger just stood there, facing the front door. Then, suddenly, he turned his head towards the window. Only then, I realized that he was holding a sharp axe in his hand. Our eyes met. I was so scared that I quickly closed the curtain. Then, the pounding from the man as well as Max's bark got even more fierce. The doorknob was twisted repeatedly, but since I had already locked it, he couldn't do anything but leave. I was still shivering, hugging Max behind the door. Just a few minutes later, I heard a car drive into my block. Luckily, it was Haley. She seemed so calm, so I asked,
"Did you meet anyone on the way home?"
Haley didn't understand what happened and shook her head. When I told her about it, she burst out laughing and said,
"Haha, you're such a coward. Maybe it's some Easter freaks trying to tease you."
Phew, maybe she was right. Haley brought a lot of snacks for the sleepover. We watched movies until late at night before going to bed. Before going to my room, I didn't forget to check the front door. Locked! But as soon as the TV was turned off, Haley turned to me. Shh. I listened. Gosh, the footsteps again. I looked at Haley, and she nodded, indicating she heard the same thing. The footsteps bounced from the back of the house. He's heading to the kitchen door! I trembled.
Oh no. I was going to let Max out for a while and then lock the door. So I forgot. The kitchen door is not locked.
Fast as lightning, the shadow of Bunny's head appeared in the window, and just like that, the knob was turned and the door was wide open.
Run upstairs now! Go, go!
As I was frozen with fear, Haley shouted. I held the phone and carried Max to the bedroom. Haley and the Easter freak were just a few steps away from me. My mind went blank. I dashed into the bedroom, When there was only the last step left, Haley tripped on the last step and fell to the ground. I was about to rush out when she jumped up and yelled,
Lock the door! I'm going to your parents' room!
I did as she said, latched the door, and also heard the door close from my parents' room. Trembling, I dialed 911.
It's 911. What's your emergency?
Please help us! There's a murderer!
Then, I suppressed my fear and read the home address to the operator. But at that moment, I heard Haley's voiceless scream. Only then did I remember, in this house, only my bedroom door had a lock. I heard an axe hitting the floor and Haley screaming for help and crying and screaming, but my whole body stiffened, unable to move. And then, everything fell into an eerie stillness. I could even hear my heart pounding in my chest.
I'm going to die! I'm going to die! No!
The door to my room suddenly attacked. I accidentally turned on the speaker to hear...
The police will be at your address in a minute. Try to hold out.
The bunny man must have heard it too, because he stopped destroying the door. Then he turned his back and dragged the body of Haley, my poor friend, out of the house and disappeared in the dark.
Even though I was the survivor, I had been traumatized for a long time, and that was why I ended up in a mental hospital.
Good job, Lila. You are now eligible for hospital discharge. If you need anything, just contact us.
No, Lila! No, Lila!
The weather was terrible yesterday.
Yeah. Since there was a construction site near Dunkin' Donuts, we lost a lot of loyal customers. It meant less work for John and me. I had nothing to complain about my job until one day. We were about to close the stall when a guest walked in. It was so hot outside, but he still wore a hoodie and his hair covered most of his face. So weird.
Welcome to Dunkin' Donuts.
The guest walked in, but the way he walked was abnormal. He walked along the wall to a table in the corner. It was like his back was glued to it.
Who's that freak?
John said as he didn't welcome this customer. I, on the opposite, thought this was just a rueful man, so I brought him the menu. As I came closer, I found this man was not as old as I thought.
2 vegan chocolate rainbow and 1 strawberry red, please.
The thing was, whatever he did, he fixed his head and back in one position, not to move an inch, like a pre-programmed robot. Then I was told that his name was Edward and he lived nearby. Perhaps because of his timid personality, he had never entered a store or restaurant. The more I got to know him, the more I found out that he and I had a lot in common. But John didn't like this guy at all.
Freak.
Many times, John deliberately spoke loudly for Edward to hear those words. One night, John had to serve Edward.
What did you say?
Suddenly, I heard him shout, then rushed to the guest like a wild animal. Edward was panicking and shaking his head. He didn't know what to do.
Hey, stop it!
I hurriedly approached.
He called me bastard,
John said in anger. But that sounds strange. Edward was one of the most polite people I had ever met. Seeing John's aggressive actions, Edward quickly left without saying any words.
Why do you keep protecting him?
Since that incident, John no longer disparaged Edward, but still expressed his displeasure. He once asked me,
Aren't you curious why that guy always walks like that?
Frankly, I was really curious but too shy to ask. So John told me his plan to know about the secret. That night, Edward came to Dunkin' Donuts as usual, and he even lent me a book. Before he sat down, I said,
I got off work early today. Would you wait for me a little bit and walk with me home?
Edward seemed so surprised after my information that he dropped the book on the ground. I quickly bent over to help him pick up the book, and I heard him say,
"You stupid bimbo."
I looked at Edward in surprise, and he hurriedly waved his hand and said,
No, I didn't mean it.
But right on the spot, a slap made me fall to the ground. John jumped out of nowhere and punched Edward in the face. While John lifted me up, I heard Edward scream like crazy. He frantically tried to cover his head with his hands and stepped back against the wall. John violently grabbed Edward and yelled at his face.
Stop it, you freak! What do you want? No! I didn't mean it! Please!
Edward was about to cry.
You'd better...
Before John finished his words, his hands were grabbed and squeezed by Edward. I even heard the sound of bones cracking. Then John was thrown aside. He rolled on the ground in pain with his arm disfigured. I heard Edward spew out a dozen curses, but his mouth didn't move. For a moment, I saw Edward's back turned. Behind his head, a wrinkled face, cruel and monstrously ugly.
You rat!
That creature growled and walked toward me. Edward's tall body was now strangely contorted. Just as the monster was about to catch me, I resisted fiercely. I slammed the thick book into his face and made it fall to the ground with a high-pitched hiss. At that moment, I heard Edward's voice.
Riley! Run!
I was so scared and ran out of the restaurant. When the police arrived, Edward was no longer there, and John was taken to the emergency room immediately. I later found out that Edward had suffered from a rare parasitic twin. That was why he had a strange creature behind his head. I quit the job at Dunkin' Donuts after that. Even though my life has returned to normal, I still think about Edward from time to time. I wonder where he is and what he's doing. I hope he can get rid of that monster to live a free life just as I am.
Huh?
this story was put in the same situation, and even though she's a grown-up now, she still remembers what happened that day. 14 years ago, on a sunny Sunday afternoon, Sophia and her mother went to Walmart for some groceries. Since Sophia had done a good job helping her mom with housework, as a reward, Mom would buy her a Barbie school bag. Sophia was so excited that she kept singing until they'd arrived at the parking lot. She was happy every time going to the supermarket. It was time to run and juggle along hundreds of parallel aisles.
Sweetie, you shouldn't be running around like that.
Zoe reminded her daughter before giving her the bag she always wanted.
Thank you, Mommy.
The little girl hugged her mother.
Darling, now go to the play area and stay there while I go buy some fruit, all right?
Zoe led Sophia to the play area.
Remember, just stay here. I'll be right back, all right?
And so there was only happy Sophia left among hundreds of toys of all kinds. While Sophia was looking around, a stranger quietly approached her.
Hello, little friend.
Hi.
Sophia was startled, but still replied in a friendly manner.
Where's your mommy?
Sophia didn't answer, but pointed towards the fruit counter.
So, you're here alone?
This man's voice and appearance started to make her stomach turn. Mom always said to never talk to strangers, so she wouldn't say any other words.
Aw, I'm so sad because I don't have any friends.
Sophia suddenly felt pity for him.
Don't cry. I get it.
Sophia gave the man a candy to comfort him.
Ah, thank you, little friend.
Sophia!
Zoe called out her daughter's name.
I'm here, Mommy!
Seeing that the kid was all right, Zoe turned away, continuing to talk on the phone with customers. When Sophia turned back, the man had already disappeared. The man wasn't really leaving, he was observing. Now he was quite sure that the mother wouldn't be back right away. So he returned to Sophia.
Hey, little friend.
Oh, hi!
Thanks for the candy.
You're welcome.
Hey, little friend, I have something for you. This is a thank you gift.
Sophia looked at the beautiful doll with amusement.
So pretty.
She marveled while stroking the doll. Suddenly, she was gone.
Sophia?
Zoe returned and her daughter had already disappeared.
Sophia!
There was no answer. Feeling that something bad might have happened, she panicked and ran out to find her child.
Sophia!
It were as though she vanished.
Oh my God! Sophia! Where are you?
Zoe went from one toy aisle to another, but couldn't see any kids that looked like hers. She started to regret leaving her daughter alone. As soon as she reached the doll stall, Zoe paused. Wasn't that the backpack that Sophia was wearing before? She ran around to ask for help.
Please help me. My daughter is missing.
Most people just ignored her because they didn't know what was going on. Finally, there was a Walmart security guard standing nearby.
Excuse me. My daughter is lost. Please help me.
She cried.
Please, calm down. I will immediately call the security center to find her,
the guard said.
Sophia!
Zoe immediately ran like crazy to where she heard her daughter. It seemed that Zoe's cries and Sophia's struggle worked. The man dropped the girl and ran away. Sophia ran towards her mother. Zoe immediately hugged her daughter and couldn't help crying.
I'm scared.
As soon as she met her mother, Sophia quickly hugged her neck.
I'm sorry. I
I'm sorry, honey.
The man was quickly arrested. The incident stirred the media for a while and became a warning for mothers not to let their children play in supermarkets or shopping centers by themselves.
Sweetie, I'm sorry. From now on, I will never, ever let you out of my sight.
Can even bring danger to a whole plane. Well, I witnessed that once, and I don't want that nightmare to happen a second time. It was a summer day in June. After a year of hard work, I decided to treat myself to a trip to Hawaii. Traveling alone was something so fun, especially when you're an introvert. I checked in just in time to board the plane. When finding my seat, I was annoyed to see someone sitting there already. Some minutes later, the flight attendant approached and asked me to settle down, so I had to walk over to my seat.
Excuse me? I think this is my seat. But I don't like to sit near the window, so I prefer this one. But the seat is on the ticket. I don't think we can change, but I don't want to change it. Any problems?
Because of her loud voice, everyone turned back and looked at me. I was so embarrassed that I forced myself to sit near the window. After the plane took off, that woman took off the mask, while the flight attendant asked everyone to wear masks during the flight.
Hey, why did you take off the mask?
She glared at me with red eyes.
What's the matter? Why are you so nosy? Never mind.
But then I decided to report this.
Can I go to the bathroom for a bit?
The woman reluctantly said.
What a disturbing thing.
I moved out and went across the restroom to the cabin. I wanted to inform the flight attendant about the woman's behavior. That made me very uncomfortable. After listening to my report, the flight attendant went to talk to her. But you think that was all? Not so easy. The Karen yelled.
I just took off my mask for a snack. Is there any need to be so strict?
Then glared at me. The flight attendant turned to me.
Is that true?
I hesitated for a moment, then shook my head slightly. The flight attendant looked at the woman.
Would you mind putting the mask back on now? But is it a big deal? I only took off my mask for 1 minute. Why are you so unreasonable? But it's the rules, so I ask you to strictly follow it. Do you want me to die? With the mask on, how can I breathe properly? I'll sue you! Madam, I ask you to sit down and stay calm, and then put on your mask.
The woman suddenly grabbed the flight attendant by the collar.
I don't like masks! Can you understand it?
I stood up and tried to stop her, but to no avail. The woman then pushed the flight attendant aside.
What would you do to me?
The other people seemed so panicked. The woman got her face close to the attendant. She seemed so mad. Then she suddenly turned around and pointed at me.
You're the one who did this!
She rushed over to me and picked me up by the neck. I was so scared, I could hardly breathe. My whole body was drained of strength.
It's you!
The woman then pushed me down on the seat and took my mask off. Fortunately, at that moment, the flight attendant appeared in time and tied her up with duct tape. With the help of another flight attendant, they tied the woman to the chair and dragged me out. My whole body was shaking, my heart was still beating fast, and I felt short of breath even though the flight attendant kept reassuring me. After the plane landed, the police quickly showed up. The woman kept screaming at them and ended up being handcuffed off the plane. Well, it was the scariest flight of my life, and now every time I see someone like that woman, I get chills. I wish you a happy traveling season, and to never get into the same situation as I did.
Students from using this social media. I repeat.
What?
This is the most shocking announcement to Emma. As a mini-influencer, Instagram is not the only place where she shows off her body, but also her most profitable means of making money.
You know what? It's all because of Scarlett.
Emma says, surreptitiously surfing Instagram. Mina looks at Emma's old posts. Those are photos of her, Emma, and other hot Instagrammers bullying Scarlett for fun. A few weeks later, Scarlett disappeared. People say she moved to another school. But strangely enough, Emma and Mina's famous Instagram friends are also missing for unknown reasons.
But do you think those disappearances have anything to do with her?
Emma clicks her tongue. She doesn't care. Emma and Mina are both obsessed with Instagram. Wherever Emma goes, she takes pictures and updates them on her Instagram. That night, Emma sees Mina posting a picture of fried chicken, presumably sent by the advertising agency. So Emma calls Mina to ask about it. Mina is wearing the same pair of pajamas as her. Just then, Emma heard the bell ring. Mina said,
"Maybe the company has sent another product. I'm gonna go get it."
A few minutes pass. Mina's not returning yet. Emma asks impatiently,
Hey, are you still there?
At that moment, the screen goes black and turns off. Maybe Mina's left the phone on dead again, Emma thinks. The next day, Mina doesn't come to school. A few days later, Emma calls her, but there's no response.
Did she go somewhere far away to shoot?
Emma is a little worried. After John's algebra class again, Emma pulls out her phone to surf Instagram. With her hand bored, she takes a picture of Mr. John's lecture and posts it without caption. Math sucks. A few minutes later, her picture got 100 likes. That night, Emma goes to bed at 10 o'clock as usual. These days, she's been seeing a pickup truck appear across from her bedroom. Feeling unsettled, Emma tries to look inside, but no one seems to be there. So she decides to go to sleep and can't stop thinking about Mina.
I'll go over her house tomorrow.
When Emma wakes up in the middle of the night, it has been really dark. Jesus, it's so cold in here. She looks out the window. It has been open already.
Did I forget to close the door?
Annoyed, Emma reached into the bedside lamp to find the switch. Just then, she realized there's something off. The electric switch feels warm and strangely soft. Only now does Emma squint her eyes in the dark. She gets startled when she realizes that there's someone standing near the bed, staring dead at her. Emma panics and quickly withdraws her hand. She's pinched by the roofied cloth, slowly faints before making any sound. Revenge for Scarlett. Revenge for Scarlett. Revenge for Scarlett. Emma wakes up, finding herself in a room in the basement. Her head hurts like hell. She tries to regain her sanity. Gosh, a stench hits her nose, making her nauseous. She just realizes that all the walls are covered by her Instagram photos and her friends, including Mina. On the floor, there are piles of black, glossy bags tied to the top.
Am I in Scarlett's shelter?
Emma's shivered by her thought. At that moment, she hears the door open, and then the shadow of a man coming. God, that is Teacher John. He's still wearing his school uniform, his face and body covered in blood.
Little rat, are you awake?
Emma doesn't understand what's going on. She tries to get down until she's stopped by another pile of plastic bags.
Go to hell,
he says as he raises his sharp axe.
Please forgive me. I won't tell anyone.
Emma cries, panics, even though she doesn't understand anything. Emma plunges into the plastic bags and frantically hides. Teacher John, still holding the axe, slowly follows her. Teacher John strongly swings his axe down, but Emma dodges it. The plastic bag on the side pops open. Gosh, That's a leg on the fluid. Despite it being neatly cut, Emma still recognizes Mina's double pajamas. That's when she realized that she was lying on plastic bags of bodies. Emma's so scared and disgusted that she shivers. John's laughter rings out again.
You just now realize that?
Then the axe swings again, but this time she can no longer escape. Before she passes out, Emma sees Mr. John on his knees, holding a photo and crying.
Scarlet, I'm sorry. I should have ended this sooner.
You to be my Valentine. I remember the look on your face, the happiness and excitement of the day we spent together, drained from your face like water running down a plug hole. You said no.
Heather, but you haven't thought about it, right?
But you were so sure.
I said no. I don't want to be your Valentine. To me, our relationship is just friends with benefits. Nothing more.
My love is burning for you. But just like that, you walked away into the crowd of lovers. I love you. I love you so much. Is it not enough for you? That night, after you left, I sat there and cried for hours. Didn't stop crying until I fainted in the middle of a luxurious restaurant. People look at me like I'm crazy. Don't blame them. Those who never understand what true love is. After the day I was rejected by you, I couldn't leave my bed. For how long, I don't remember. Maybe 2 weeks or more. I only went out when I'm exhausted from starving myself. But instead of going to the supermarket, I couldn't help but follow the familiar route, leading to your apartment. Heather, do you know? When I saw you through the window, I felt more relieved than ever. Just as I felt the fire in me rekindle, I saw that man, the man you always hated. Who the hell he thought he was to touch you, hug you, and even put his dirty lips on your cheek. The moment you lower the window curtain, to be honest, you shut down my heart. Don't know how I got home, but you know what? When I came back to my apartment, everything I saw was the empty room and the cuts on my body. I didn't want to live anymore. I looked at your photos and decided to make another cut on my body. Blood drops. Sting. And I thought, would things be different if I died? Can I change things, even just a little bit? And that night, with a picture of you in my hand, a plan gradually formed in my head. Heather Gray, has been a few days since that man didn't pick up your phone. Well, he's dead. It's not hard to find his house and where he hid the keys. I was already hiding in the closet and waiting for him to come back from your house. I have to tell you, it's really not a pleasant feeling to do, my Heather. I had to wait a long time, and when night fell and the man was fast asleep, I acted. With the knife that I intended to end my life with, I used to end his life. Just one neat cut across the neck. He was already awake. But I was reckless. He's not a decent man. Before he died, he frantically clung to me, scratching me so hard, my skin bled. I watched him convulse, struggle, and suffocate in his own blood ocean. Before he grasped the last air, he still dared to ask me who I was. And I said, I'm your lover, Heather Gray. His blood splashed on me, got on all over my body, my face and hands, I felt disgusted, so I burned him and burned his house. Don't worry, police couldn't find me for now. I felt better after this, but still not completely. I was still missing something. It was you. I needed you. The plan would never be complete without you. You say, my love's burning for you. Is not enough. Well, I burned him for you. I burned you, and I burned us, because I know that's the only way. Heather Gray, I'm burning everything just for you. Now it's enough, right? Now we can be together, right? I'm gonna ask you again. Will you be my Valentine?